Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Good evening. It is 6:02 and welcome to the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. Today is September 17th and I'm calling our meeting to order at 6:02. We have 5 trustees present in person at the Ross Valley School District office at 100 Shaw Drive in San Anselmo. Myself, Rachel Litwack, Anna Marsh, Chris Landles-Cobb, Daniel Cassidy, and Shelley Hamilton. We also have cabinet members present, Superintendent Tyler Graff, CBO Chris Carson, and our Director of Student Services, Lori O'Connor. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and the link is on our website and on the agenda. There will be a 60-second delay between the meeting and the YouTube live stream. An audio recording of the meeting will be made available to the public on our district website within 72 hours following the meeting. And with that, I will move on to our first item, which is closed session. I'm going to identify our closed session topics. The first one is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D2 or 3, special education program dispute, student SSID number 29272404225. There's no public here for public comment, so with that, I will recess us to closed session at 6:03. All right, and welcome back. It is 6:24 and we are reconvening from a closed session. I'm going to report out from closed session. The board unanimously voted to approve staff's recommendation on the conference with legal counsel regarding special education program dispute, student SSID 292-724-0425. With that, moving on to procedural items, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next item is to adopt the agenda and time allocations. Did we have any changes, requests? Too late for additions?
All good with me. I
All right.
make a motion to, unless I'm looking around here, not seeing any non-verbals, but so I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as.
Great. Do I have a
I have a
second?
second.
Great. Shelley.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Anna. Aye. Rachel. Aye. All right, so we have an adopted agenda. Our next item is decommunication. The first item here is public comment regarding items not on the open session agenda. I don't see anything listed there. So moving on to communication and correspondence to public comment. There is no one here to make public comment, excuse me. Correspondence and communication to the board. We do not have any items listed there. And moving on to announcements by labor unions, CSEA and RBTA. We have no member labor unions present to speak up for that. So moving on to E, presentation and or action items. The first one here is recommended approval of 2024-25 unaudited actuals financial report. Go ahead, Chris.
That is going to be. This is on the correct one. Okay, good. So thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. And so what we'll talk about this evening, I think our battery is gone. Sorry for the delay. So what we'll talk about tonight is just our budget timelines, our general fund, and our reserves, and then sum that up with our other funds. And so in terms of timelines, we have 4 budgets that are due annually. You'll see there's 5 on here. The reason there's 5 is because 2 of them are the same. One is the adopted budget and the other is the estimated actuals. Those are taken at the same time. Those are due by July 1st. We have our first interim, which is due by December 15th, second interim, March 15th, and we also have our unaudited actuals on the 15th of September. I just want to point out that even though today's the 17th, we actually submitted our unaudited actuals to the county by the 15th deadline, so they have them. Tonight, we're approving them. And so
Procedurally, we can do that.
we can do that.
Obviously,
We did it the same way last year.
Now, for the first interim budget
Okay.
as well.
I think I may have asked last year too.
That happens sometimes just because of the dates of the budgets.
Okay,
In terms of our general fund, this is the way our general fund shakes out, and this is our unrestricted and our restricted funds all together. And so when looking at it, you'll note that we had a change in fund balance of $2.1 million gain. In 21-22, 22-23, we had $2 million. 23-24, which is how we closed a year ago, we lost $653,000. This year we lost just a tick under $2.7 million, and we expect to lose about $2.3 million next year. And again, that's the entire general fund.
Chris, do you remember where our projections were at second interim for what we were going to close at this year?
Where we showed, I'm sorry, our adopted budget was just a little bit over the 2.7. So our second interim was a little bit different than that. It was less because we had some salary settlements as well that came in. So we made some adjustments.
So is the 2.6 a larger number than we projected or a smaller number than we projected?
It's slightly smaller than the 2.7 that we had projected.
But a year ago this time, wasn't it like 1.6 or something you were estimating it to be at?
And that happens all the time because what happens is you have salary settlements and you also have carryover funds in your restricted side. So you might start with something smaller and then it might grow. So even with what you're seeing with the $2.3 million deficit, that will undoubtedly grow as I start to roll in my carryover budget. So you'll see that number change at first interim.
Then one other question. For the 2021, 22, and 22, 23 years, where we show like an increase in our balances there, is that like COVID funds basically?
It's a combination of COVID funds and also on the local control funding formula side, the unrestricted side. We were paid for several years based upon the pre-pandemic attendance. And then when we started receiving the funding based upon our actual attendance, what the state realized is that there were such large drops in the attendance and attendance rates that they changed it from the higher of your current year or prior year attendance to those plus adding the higher of your 3 prior years. And so what ended up happening is you ended up with large carryovers that were really masking what was coming. And that for us, because we saw an attendance drop of roughly 275, or an enrollment drop of 275 children.
So essentially, this you can kind of see the fiscal cliff happening in the 23, 24, 24, 25, but kind of cresting in the 22, 23, and then that's where it goes whoop because of the whole COVID ADA.
Yes, that's correct.
Whole harmless stuff.
So I was talking about a fiscal cliff during that time, and it was in the future, always in the future.
You were warning us.
And this is that future. The future is today.
Future is now.
So the other thing that is important to note is what does our actual unrestricted reserves look like? And here we were showing $1,300,000 as our restricted fund balance, and our unrestricted fund balance of $3.2 million in 25-26. And that what that gives you is a total general fund unrestricted fund balance of 10%, where we actually, and that's an estimate. In 24-25, where we just closed the books, it's 15.8%, and we have an unrestricted fund balance of $5.26 million. And what you'll notice is that the deficit has been causing your fund balances to drop. And you see that really, it's very clear. We started at 26.6, 25.7, 23.1, 15.8, 10%. And we actually drop in the 2 subsequent years within our multi-year projections as well, which you'll be showing again in our first interim budget. They were part of our estimated actuals. And those will be starting to get in the low single digits.
Our third year out right now is projected to be 5.7%.
And we have a required minimum reserve of 3%. And the other thing that is important to note is that that does not include any potential changes that we might have for any salary settlements. That doesn't have any additional cost increases that might be coming, whether it's electricity, your other utilities, other services, etc.
Is the increase in the TK population causing an increase in expenses?
It
Or is
does.
it a wash with the AD?
It causes an increase in your expenses, but we also have increased revenues as a result of it.
It's a wash. Okay.
So the TK really doesn't, it will net, not quite to zero, but it does give you a positive impact.
Okay.
And TK is expensive because you have to have a teacher
Ratio.
and an aide for 20 students, and you can't go over 20, not even by 1. So where we have a little bit of flexibility in our second or third grade, where our goal is 24, but if you put 25 or 26 kids with agreement with the teacher and the principal, it's not the end of the world. But in TK, there's a very strict cap on the number of students you can have in a classroom. for good reason.
And just so I'm clear, I know that they have been slowly matriculating or changing the age range, and I believe that we are now at the end of that slow matriculation in. Is this year the first year that end?
Correct.
It is, okay.
It's now a full grade.
It's now a full
12
grade.
months worth of children
Got it.
within there. The other thing that's important is this year we went from a 12 to 1 student to teacher or student to adult ratio down to a 10 to 1.
Right,
So you'll also see smaller class sizes in the current year.
right.
And they also fully funded the TK program this year, and that was part of the governor's final push and the final budget adoption in June.
But as far as like continued, I mean, there was a massive increase in the TK students, but that's gonna slow down because part of that was driven by more kids because of the younger ages, so it should level off.
It will start to level off a bit, but we're still seeing an increase, as you'll recall with our demographic study. We're going to see a slow increase
Just
over the
from
next few years.
population,
Yeah,
families and
and
stuff.
it's really a result of what happened with COVID, and we just have more children being born.
And coming back.
And so what you'll see is a little bit larger grade levels coming in than the outgoing
Right.
8th graders in essence.
Right.
So in terms of other funds, I kind of wanted to talk about these real quick because the titles that are on these are the titles that they give with the actual form, but they might be a little deceptive when looking at them. Fund 13 is our cafeteria fund, so that's what pays for our food service. Fund 14, our deferred maintenance fund, that's a fund that will eventually be going away and is used for exactly what you think it is, deferred maintenance. The state no longer allows us to include a portion of our routine restricted maintenance match into it, so there's no reason for it. It will all be done out of the general fund. Fund 25, our capital facilities fund, that is our developer fees. So as people pull permits to build homes, we collect dollars on the square footages, and it goes into this particular fund, but it can only be used for things in terms of growth of student population. So I couldn't use it to, for example, to put a new roof on this building. It's not something to be used for things of that nature.
Could we not use that for the TK bathrooms?
You could potentially use it for that. I would say that that's not going to be enough for TK restrooms, though.
But they're little toilets.
Is there a time frame, like you don't have to spend it all in 1 year in
No.
terms of growth, so if you had a growth, could you spend it on like the last 3 years worth of growth if your growth then tapers off? If you get what I'm saying? Like if you
I
saw-
can. So you would use it for things like new classrooms. You could use it, as Daniel mentioned, for things like the restrooms because you have had growth. But then there might be an argument that it's based upon change in law and not new students based upon
Right.
square footages that are being
Would
paid.
anybody argue against using that for the TK population?
If it was going to happen, it would generally be the building industry.
The other thing that you could
Because
use
they
this
have
for
good
is you could use it for portable buildings. You need to put a portable on a campus for expansion. Also for a facilities master plan. That's something that we've talked about. And facilities master plans are not cheap. So this would be a great use of those funds if we got to a point when we were ready to do that.
And you do see that there's $21,393 in expenses in this fund last year. That was for, we do have a modular building that we pay for every year at Manor School when we had some growth. And we also paid for the demographic study out of this. So those are appropriate uses of funds out of that.
When
So
you say we pay for it every year, you mean we rent it?
it's a lease, correct? Then as you move into Fund 35, the County School Facilities Fund, that's a little bit of a misnomer. That's our modernization fund. So as you see, it's only carryover dollars. There's really nothing in it. The revenues or interest income, what's left over. But anytime we have a full-blown modernization project, you would see the revenues and the expenses in this. Fund 40, the special reserve for capital facilities. This is what we have for Deer Park. And so as you see, we have an ending balance of $1,951,992. That's inclusive of only the projects that were spent in through June 30th. We still have projects that were done in July and August that are still going to hit here. So it's not all inclusive as where we are right now, but those are the Deer Park funds. And then Fund 51, the Bond Interest and Redemption Fund, it's a fund that is off of our books. It's with the County of Marin. And what this is, they collect revenues and pay for our bonds based upon the property taxes. So any old GO bonds that we had approved and sold, that's what goes into and out of this particular fund.
And this is basically just money in, money out.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And so that's our other funds, just to kind of give you a synopsis of what we have out there.
So basically bond financing money.
Yes, bond financing money. So it's not something I have access to. I couldn't go tap into it and spend it for something. So, and with that, do we have any further questions?
Can I ask a question about the MCOE letter that we got
Yes.
this week, around the extra work we need to do because we are, well, and maybe this is a better conversation for the next.
It's a better conversation for the next
Okay, then
segment,
I'll
yeah.
hold that. Okay.
But it's a great question.
With the segue into the next conversation, if you go back to those list of other funds, are any of those other funds, and if so, which ones, considered in the denominator of our reserve percentage, or are they off of?
They're completely separate funds altogether. And so when we talk about our reserves, it is only the general fund.
It's only the general fund, so
Correct.
not. So if somebody were to look at this and say, well, I can't understand the percentage, you've got $2 million in capital facilities money, isn't that a reserve? It's like, no, that's not part of that reserve.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not in the general fund.
it's not in the general fund. Great, thank you for that clarification.
How much of what is a more accurate ending, as of the end of the summer for the Fund 40 for capital reserves? I'm just curious how much what's the.
So we would have
Roughly.
spent dollars still on, and this kind of gets into Des's presentation a little bit later, but we had a shade structure that we did at Hidden Valley, which you'll see, and the roof was completed during that time, and we also have the asphalt at both Wade Thomas and Manor, and so just those things off of the top of my head are probably about $375,000.
And we have the Brookside Bridge coming down the pike as well, which will take a chunk of that.
Can we use Fund 40 to fund a master plan, capital master plan, or does it have to be used for brick and mortar projects only?
Fund 40 would normally be for actual facilities, but the facility master plan, as Tyler had mentioned, can be paid for out of Fund 25 because it's looking at your total facilities and looking at sizing of the district.
But if we
and
needed
all of
more
those.
than what was available in Fund 25, could we use money out of Fund 40 or no?
I don't think it would be appropriate.
I think, do you think we'll have money left over at the end of this school year in Fund 40?
Yes.
Okay, and I think some of the things, we have a prioritized list. When we did our facilities walkthroughs, when we had our survey at the beginning of last year about facilities, I know we have facilities walkthroughs with Des and principals this October again.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of still have some priority. I think Wade Thomas, I was at Wade today, they'd like to have a fence out in front of the building so
Yep.
little TK kids aren't running out into the parking lot. That's one thing that's on our list. We've also talked about TK playgrounds improvements at both Wade Thomas and at Brookside. We've got the Brookside Bridge, so there's still a few things that are on the list that will, even at the end of this year, we'll start doing it next summer to spend down the rest of this money.
Yep.
And actually, you reminded me of one additional project that I forgot that's probably going to come out of Fund 40, and that's the play structure at Manor, the TKK play structure.
Right.
So that'll add another 60,000 there.
Thank you.
Chris, what's your big takeaway you want us to hear from this presentation?
The big takeaway is that we did lose, $1.8 million, and on the unrestricted side, and we're expecting more next in the current year, and we really need to get our total expenses under control. Obviously, a lot of it is driven by salary and benefits, and so we have tightened up there. The issue really ultimately comes down to a revenue issue. That's the biggest takeaway. And if you were to look, and you can see it here, when you look at that very top line, LCFF revenues, you do see some growth between 21-22 to 22-23, but then there isn't much growth. And in fact, 25-26 shows a decline. And so as our expenses continue to climb just on the natural, it becomes clearer and clearer that it's a revenue issue.
Yeah, we almost have the same amount of funding on that LCFF line this year in 25-26 as we did in 22-23, but a $100,000 difference.
And you can see it just in our expenses. Just look at your first line for certificated salaries. You go from 12.6 to $13.7 million.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Benefits are continuing obviously to go up. What's the projection there? Is it a steady climb, or are you looking at potential?
Part of that is kind of masked, and it doesn't really impact the district. We had about $1.1 million in STRS on behalf payments in 23-24, and in 24-25 we have about 1.3 million, and that's about a $200,000 increase just from that one entry in your benefit costs. Now, what are STRS on behalf benefits? That is the district looking into the state equations and saying that we have to book our portion of the additional state payments towards CalSTRS, and we record both the revenue and an expense for it. So for our books, it becomes a zero-sum game. But when you look at the benefits, you see a $200,000 increase. There's also a $200,000 increase up in our state revenues for that one particular entry. And so that's an example of something that hits that.
Yeah.
But then the other things that go into benefits are our normal health and welfare cost increases.
I think that's what I'm curious about. Just is there an increase in the Kaiser rate?
There is.
For this school year?
There is. There's approximately a 5% increase between our rates last year and then moving forward in health benefits.
Okay, well I just want to understand as I look at these numbers, you're saying that those numbers are tricky because they're actually offset by this.
Part of it, yes.
But the actuals are definite numbers there. So
correct.
So does that mean that the beginning and ending balances are actually higher than what they are?
No, if you have a zero-sum game, both revenues and expenses, it nets to zero.
Right, I know.
So
that.
in terms of that, but what that does, as I increase the expenses, that also makes it so I have to have a higher reserve.
Oh, so you're putting it someplace. Okay.
It doesn't, it's not hidden. It's there because I have to calculate the reserve first based upon our actual expenses.
Yeah.
So if I have higher expenses by that $200,000, then I also have to have a higher reserve by 3% of that additional $200,000.
Is that the question you're asking, Chris?
That's not the question I'm asking. Thank you. And I'm just trying to understand this because I'm looking at, let's just take 2024-25. You've got 7425012. You're saying that that's actually offset by other funds,
A portion of it,
portion of it.
1.3 million.
Okay, so 1.3 million. So is it actually 7.425 or is it 6.1?
I would, in terms of our unaudited actuals, it's actually 7.4, but the expenses that we can control would be the 6.1.
Okay, so
Because the 1.3 is the zero sum net. So
Yeah.
there's like a 1.3 zero sum net
Correct.
that we can't do anything with, and the remaining 6.1 is expenses that we can
Correct.
do something with.
Yes.
okay, okay.
But we would have to further reduce benefits, and we're already kind of at the bottom of the barrel
Correct.
with benefits for our district. And I think the question I was getting at was, is Kaiser going up? The answer is yes,
Yeah.
by 5%.
Yeah.
So teachers and staff will get a pay reduction if we don't cover that in the coming year.
Correct.
In essence, a pay reduction, because they'll have some money come out of their paycheck to cover the Kaiser.
Their portion.
Yeah.
So we have increased expense. Everybody has increased expenses.
If we
Staff
assume
have
we're
some,
gonna
and
cover that
If we
cost.
continue to cover the percentage that we cover, then we're all happy. And that's a trend. I mean, the healthcare expenses trend from everything that I've been seeing is not over.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
definitely-
it's definitely.
That's what I was wondering, the projections like 26, 27. Do you, as far as the benefits so are you averaging like the healthcare increases over the last so many years, or what is the data that you're using?
So the school district has a benefit cap on benefits, and so I wouldn't be increasing benefits within our budgets. It would be capped and kept the same for that
So
particular
We
category.
pay for Kaiser single payer.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say, Chris, is that in the next year projection, 26, 27, we're only assuming Kaiser single payer for this year's rate, or actually for last year's rate,
Right.
right? So then we're not assuming we cover that for this school year, or we cover the expense the next year or the next year. So I think when you see these numbers, the hard part is because you have to negotiate salaries and benefits as part of that negotiation. You can't project what you're gonna cover
Right.
in 26, 27, or 27, 28. So
You just
then
know that you're probably not gonna go backwards, so you just keep it flat going forward.
you keep it flat,
without
but
any
then
assumptions.
you know that if you settle for 0.5% or 3% or 8% and you cover Kaiser single payer, your costs are gonna go up.
way up, yeah. Okay.
And so the other thing that drives those benefit costs, it's not just health and welfare, it's also all your statutory benefits. So you have your PERS and your STIRS,
Yeah.
and you have your SUI, you have your Medicare, workers' comp, and SUI, I don't know if I said that already, but those percentages do change slightly every year as well. And we do, your CalSTRS rate is based upon statute, so that one has not changed. But every year we're seeing increases in that CalPERS rate, and so that gets built in. And as your salaries increase, so too do your driven costs.
For your escalators, do all districts across the state use the same escalator percentages, or like I remember you talking in the past where you're kind of the consortium or whoever's kind of advising all of the CBOs of school districts. There's kind of a package of like, here's our projected escalators for CalPERS, for utility expenses, for all that kind of stuff. So you're following along with those recommendations.
Correct.
Okay. And are they statutorily required for you to follow along, or is it just a best practice type of information?
I would say probably a little bit of both. I mean, again, CalSTRS is in statute, so I know that it's 19.1%. It's not going to change.
Right.
And CalPERS changes, so we know that that's based upon an actuarial study that happens in the spring every year. And so what we do is we just look at what we're being told or is the expected rate.
Got it.
And so we'll budget based upon that. It might slightly change, in
Okay.
June, but once it's set, we know what it is for the year. And so again, at that point, everything is driven.
Okay, that's helpful.
Alright, do we have any more questions for Chris? Alright, then I will open it up for public comment on this agenda topic. If there is any public comment, you have 3 minutes. You will get a warning at 2.5 minutes. Anybody who would like to make public comment?
Hi, PJ Pfeffer, Manor Parent. The comment is going to be briefer because I came in after most of this has been wrapped up. But I appreciate Chris's comment on the overall budget. High proportion is on salaries, but when I'm looking at the unaudited actuals, what I'm seeing on the salaries is that they were at 100.8% of the estimated budget. So they were not far off at all. That's very predictable, and the district's done a good job predicting that. The benefits was off by a little more, 103.8%, but Chris just explained exactly why that would be the case. But the services budget and particularly the everything under the object code 5800, and it doesn't get more granular than that in this report, was up a lot more. So, overall, the services budget was $800,000 over the amount spent on services was $800,000 over the adopted budget. 55.6 million. We ended up spending 6.4 million, and that to me seems like, if you're looking at how the year turned out as compared to what your budget was, that's the real eye-popping figure. And I think that's been part of a trend for this district for a few years, with those services expenses rising pretty rapidly. And when looking at the other similar comparison districts, it's, there's a little bit of this, but it's not as extreme. And from my knowing what a lot of that money is spent on, I don't think that you're going to be able to stop that trend from increasing without proactively spending money to plug the holes that are causing those unpredictable expenses, because they're, a student comes in and we need to pay a certain amount for them to get all the services that they need to be part of our district, or not. And it's always cheaper for the district to spend that money beforehand, making sure there's not a hole to be plugged. Thanks.
Do you have any other public comments? Okay. Seeing no further comments, I will bring it back to us for a discussion.
It is what it is. And I think that, I agree with, the public is even aware of, where our hands are tied. And I think it's quite evident that we are in a straitjacket here as we start to navigate through what we can spend and what we need to keep in reserves. So I appreciate, Chris, your consistent presentation of the numbers and your ability to actually 100% effectively answer the granular, needled questions that we continue to put in front of you. Whether that's intentional or not, you'll never know. But I just want to say thank you for that. It's sobering. It's expensive. And I think it really drives home what we have to start doing as we go forward. So that's just my comment on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing that being somebody who's been here since the 21, 22, and who was part of all of those discussions back then with your, hey, fiscal cliff is coming, and looking at, the net change in fund balance and thinking back to when I was sitting here with the positive numbers in the early years on this graph here, and how close you have been, even with those long range projections out there. It's looking at where we are and where you definitely told us we were going to be. We're there, and we're where you had talked to us about being. So that gives me great confidence in us moving forward with the track record of looking back and seeing where we knew we were going to be when you were giving us that information to then as we go forward. It's only gotten tighter and tighter and more accurate over the years. Not better in the reality sense.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Oh gosh. Oh, this agenda item. I mean, we've got a flat revenue and we've got increasing expenses.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the problem. So it's a
Parcel.
revenue.
Exactly. Parcel. Yes.
Yeah.
Revenue.
We need
revenue. We can
Revenue.
talk a little bit more about this in the next item, because the next item talks a little bit about the
reserve.
message that MCOE sent us about increasing our reserves to back to where the board has asked us to have them. And there's two options: cuts and increased revenue, right? So we're at a place right now where we've cut everything but student programs. Anything that's cut here moving forward is supporting directly students. And the only way to increase revenues in the school district is increase enrollment, which we're spending money on recruitment, on marketing, trying to get as many students into our community as possible. Attendance, we're sending messaging on attendance. We've had our highest attendance rate in 4 years last year. We have our highest enrollment we've had in many years, or in a few years this year. So we're check the box there, and we'll continue to work there. Then the next is local funding, and local funding comes in the form of parcel tax. So those are really the only things we can do: cut student programs, increase enrollment, increase attendance, increase the parcel tax. Those are our 4 options we have on the table to balance this budget.
And they're not just individualized options, because at one point I think that there was perhaps the messaging that it was it the butts and seats verbiage, and that isn't enough. This is a culmination of options happening at the same time, right?
That's right.
So I just want to make sure we're clear in communicating that you told us to get butts and seats, and now you want us to do X, Y, and Z. These are things that have to be a linear path forward, correct?
100%.
Okay.
And we're talking about the delta between our per student funding, which is $11,700, and the state average, which is like $14,500. That's $3,000 difference essentially between the two. 3,000 times 1,700 kids is millions of dollars that we would have, and we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be having this conversation just if we had the state average. So when we're talking about a $3 or $4 million problem, just getting a 1% increase in student attendance is incremental.
Yeah.
Just increasing our attendance by 30, 40, 50, 100 students is incremental. Cutting the budget is incremental. We cut it by 700,000, and if the delta is 3 million, 4 million, that's still an incremental. So this is all those 4 options that I talked about: cuts, attendance, enrollment, and parcel tax, all 4 of those have to happen in order for us to balance this budget. And the core issue, I've said it 100 times, I'll say it 1,000 more, is it's a revenue issue. And the reason it's a revenue issue is twofold. First, we have low numbers of low-income students and multilingual students. And second, Prop 13 has decimated our revenues in this community in particular because lots of people have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years and have gifted their children their homes. So both of those factors keep our community's tax base very low. Even though we recognize there's some folks that just bought a house 3 months ago and their taxes are high, the overall average in the community is low.
And people don't understand that. I mean, it is, we cannot say that enough. So say it 1,000 more times.
Well, I will say that I think our community, the school community, has done a good job of addressing the attendance issue.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Yes.
I think if we continue to drive home that when we're called to action as a community, I think we show up, and that we have to make sure that we continue to push these other things forward. We've nailed the attendance, we'll continue to hopefully do that. It was hard doing that coming out of COVID. You have a sniffle, go to Texas, right? I think that we've been able to push that forward.
I mean, I appreciate people showing up to board meetings. I think that that's something. Also, I'm glad to see that we have some people here because it's, it's nice to have things to discuss that isn't just amongst ourselves, I don't know, I find that helpful. So thank you for the public comments because it is. I mean, while I think we're doing our due diligence and Chris certainly is, thank you for this. I think that we need that engagement and to really make some changes.
But Chris, I want to double down on what you just said. Our community responded.
Yes.
And continues to respond, right? They're talking about all the great things happening in our district and more kids are coming here. They are sending their kids here at a higher percentage than they have in many years. The community voted 63% to increase their own taxes, which is pretty remarkable. We're just a few percentage off. So I think this community is right there and they want to support our schools and are taking action to make it happen. It's just the delta between that 63% and that 66.7%.
We'll get there.
And I think this community will do it.
We'll get there.
More discussion on this one? I mean, I do want to say thank you to Chris for preparing this because I know this is a huge lift. It's like a 130-page document every quarter you're like churning out for us. So I know that there's a lot of work that goes into it. I appreciate that you are ready with all these answers because you know this so intimately.
Yeah, Chris, awesome. And PJ, thank you for always coming and asking great questions.
Great.
Really good to have, to Anna's point, more people involved and just like looking at the.
Try with this.
Chris, I also just want to add, it's hard to be in your seat when the numbers aren't looking good, but you're just the communicator of those. It's not, I hope you don't like hold the weight of the world on your shoulders. I just want you, I mean, this isn't us, a whole district, and as we've been talking about this, the community stepping up and doing its part as well. So I just wanted to say I appreciate you giving us these reports, but it's hard to be a CEO on in this kind of funding environment, so I just wanted to acknowledge that so that you know that.
And while we're on the Chris gratitude train, I want to give you gratitude for really tightening the screws on the budget this year, more than most CBOs would be comfortable with. Your projection and what actually happened in the budget was, within a few $1,000s. You were very, very close. And I know our community appreciates that because, as you and I both know, projections are always, the second you make a projection, it's wrong. And I think you've done a really nice job fine-tuning this to where we're getting as close to actuals as possible with your projections. And That takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith.
If there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion on this one.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the 2024-25 unaudited actuals financial report presented by Chris Carson.
And I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second. Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye.
Okay.
All right, with that, our next item is discussion of reserve percentage.
Great, that's gonna be me today. So today's just a discussion, no action, no vote, just kind of discussing where we're at with our reserves based on what we just saw from Chris. Want to start just with our board policy. There's a lot of words here, but essentially the underlined part's the part that we should pay attention to. The board has basically set a target of a 10% on that third year out, which is above the 3%, but inclusive of that 3%. So a total goal of 10%. A little bit about why we have reserves. I like to think about your own personal finances, the same reasons you would have an emergency fund in your personal budget at home, essentially the same reasons we have them here. Part of it is for cash flow. If the state is late in making payments, that we have money on hand to make sure we can meet payroll. So pretty simple one there. Economic uncertainties. California tends to be a place that is a little bit of a, since the gold rush, been a little bit of a boom and bust economy where things go really, really well and then are challenging and then go really well again and then are challenging. So, and the fiscal cliff that we're going through right now is a perfect example of economic uncertainties. COVID, this is the tail end of the COVID issue that we're dealing with right now. So having some money in our coffers to help us weather that storm is really important. One-time or unexpected expenses, right? If we had, a school building collapse or, a big storm that wiped something out or the settlement that was larger than we had expected, this is like a one-time, we can pull money from there and it doesn't impact our operating expenses for that year. So cash flow, uncertainties, and one-time unexpected things. Also, just for budget stabilization, if we have different, that's kind of the cash flow and economic uncertainties issue, so pretty similar there. For strategic investments, if we wanted to update the HVAC system in the 400 building at White Hill, we could have money to do that. If there was something specific we really wanted to do, improve a field, build a new building, we could pull from reserves to do that. One-time dollars, that's kind of what a reserve is. It's one-time dollars, should be used on one-time things. You kind of see that theme on this slide. And then for credit and fiscal health, I think the closer you get to 3%, it's harder to borrow and just, we're a worse creditor at that point. Here's what some of the other districts in the area, and we're just kind of pulling our 3 comparison districts, which are Larkspur, Corte Madera, Kentfield, Miller Creek. We threw Santa Fe Elementary in there, a little bit different, but that's a basic aid or no, it's a state funded or LCFF district. And then we pulled Mill Valley, which is a basic aid or community district. So you can kind of see what other districts with different funding structures have. At the moment, we're at 16.3. This was at the end of 23-24, Chris? Yep. So that number's lower for us now. You just saw Chris give us a number lower than that. And you see Kentfield, Miller Creek with really low numbers in the 8%. They're not deficit spending at the rate that we're spending right now. So they are managing kind of a more balanced budget. So to run that lean, you're more comfortable to run that lean if you're not deficit spending to the tune of $2 million a year, which we did last year and which we will likely do again this year. This is just the same thing in a bar graph. Kind of gives you an example of where we're at.
Can you go back?
Yes.
And Chris, the report we just had us at 10%, not 16.3?
For 25, 26.
For 25, 26, we're at 10.
These are just kind of some recommendations from around. You've heard me say this over and over and over. California requires 3%. Our board policy says 10. Basically, CBO organizations say that 17 is a good number to head to. Actually, in Santa Fe, their board policy was 17%. And they were, in each district, they were different. The elementary school district was pretty close to that 17%. High school district had a very hard time getting to that level. And the statewide average for elementaries is 25%. Smaller districts need larger reserves. And part of that is because of those one-time expenses. If you're a small district, your percentage is, your actual dollar amount is small, right? But if you're San Francisco Unified, I think because they're such a large district, they probably are required to only have 2% by the state. 2% of a $1 billion budget is a huge number, and you can weather some storms in that case. Chris, do you have anything to add to the smaller districts need larger reserves?
No, just that, when you're in a smaller district, even one salary for a teacher could be a huge percentage, a huge amount of that percentage. So for us, like one salary is probably going to be $300,000 is roughly 1%. So it's going to be 1/3% for one teacher, or 0.5%.
Why is there such a differential between California requirement and the statewide average?
Because districts generally run larger reserves for those reasons. And one of the things that's not even on here is oftentimes districts that are community funded want larger reserves as well, because when you're community funded, your revenues are based upon property taxes, and you don't get that the smoothing. So if your property tax base goes down, so too do your revenues. So they always want to be careful not to give away dollars that are too far in advance.
Then your cash flow is also different. When you're community funded, you don't
Correct.
get it in small chunks across the whole year. You get it twice a year, which means you've got bigger swings in your cash flow needs.
I just find it so strange that then the requirement is only 3.
And you think about
has that changed ever, that
Just-
3%?
they have different levels for different size districts. So really big districts, the percentage is smaller. It's like 1 or 2% if it's a larger district. And then I think 3% is the largest percentage. Is that true?
It actually goes up to 5%.
It goes up to 5 for districts under like 1,000 ADA or something like that. So just thinking about that 25%, I'm a simple man and sometimes I need a simple explanation. 25% of a year is a quarter, which is 3 months, right? So if you think about your personal finances, personal finance experts would typically say you want 3 to 6 or 6 to 12 months reserve or cushion for your family's budget. So 25% would be a 3-month reserve for your own personal finance budget. So in my mind, that's kind of on the low end of what you would want to run a business or your own, personal finances. So I think that the 10% is moving in the right direction. 3% is really low.
Because 3% is like
It's 2 months of salary.
2 weeks. I mean,
So actually, I talked to Marcy Trahan about this week. I asked her, why did we have 10% as the target? And the conversation at the board level at the time was 10% is about 2 months of operating expenses.
When was that? How many years? Has it been at 10%? Has it?
it's not changed since it was.
I think it was put in place in 2017. And it would be 10% would be for your salary and benefits
Salary and benefits for 2 months.
for 2 months.
Does that feel like still from then to now that's still an appropriate recommendation?
I'm a CBO, so I would lean towards the 17,
Right.
but 10% seems like a reasonable number to me. So,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The comparison to our personal finances,
Yeah.
given the rainy day fund, unforeseen circumstances. Let's talk about that, because I know we would save money on a personal level if I lost my job, right? If a tree fell on my house, the insurance would pay for that. If a fire burned my house down, insurance would pay for that. So when you talk about the unexpected cost, I'm trying to mitigate, I'm trying to do some risk management around that universe. And really think like, well, here we are in a situation where we're kind of facing, how do we bend this a little bit? And what are those unexpected costs when we also are insured?
Stock market crashes. Your retirement fund just dropped by 20, X%. Your cash reserve or investment account that you might need to pay your kids' college tuition, those kinds of things. I mean, that's an externality that's not covered by insurance.
I see what you're saying there, but when I'm thinking about, I'm running my house, like we're running these schools, right? And we understand from the actuals that there are predictable incremental increases in cost across the board. Okay, so no one's saying, guess what, I got into Harvard, okay? But I'm just trying to put my mind around these unexpected, unforeseen scenarios. And are we not taking into consideration that when those things may happen, that there are funds available through insurance and other factors that we don't have to dig into the reserves for?
So in terms of we've had several claims lately. We had a couple last year at Wade Thomas alone. Each time we had a claim, our deductible was $25,000. So it's not a huge number. But where we have risk are things such as settlements, as Tyler alluded to earlier, which could be unforeseen. You also have, if you get a large influx of children that might require an additional teacher, you might have to go out and get a new teacher, for example. And again, a new teacher, when you throw in salary and benefits, could be roughly 0.5%. And then you also have those are kind of your big ones on the expense side. You also have the revenue side that we haven't even talked about. And there's that thing that's looming out there that we haven't even talked about except back in June, which is the LA fires. We don't know what the LA fires are going to do to the state revenues, because everybody who lived in LA that is affected by those fires is given until October to file their taxes. And so that's when the state will truly know what their revenues are for the current year, and we could see hits to our revenues at that point. And so those are the unforeseen type things. And having been in school finance for almost 25 years now, I can tell you that I've seen countless times where the state comes to us and whoops, our revenues aren't coming in as appropriate, and we're going to have to cut appropriations out to school districts.
But at the rate that we're spending, and if that happens, we're screwed anyway, because there's no amount of reserve that's going to protect us from that additional dip that'll happen if the expected revenues in the state are affected by something like what you just said, right?
And I think that's kind of gets to the
So
point.
we have a shorter time frame to be like, you're gonna die in 6 months.
Yeah.
Lots of cuts.
So 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cushion to give you 6 months to figure out what to do, as opposed to having 2 months to figure out what to do.
Well, often what the state does when they go and cut those revenues, what they'll do is they're not going to necessarily take those dollars from you this year. They'll either defer revenues, meaning appropriations that they would give you on a monthly basis. So I kind of think of it as the wimpy syndrome. I'll gladly give you Tuesday for a hamburger, pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, and they'll do the same with our revenues. They'll say you're going to get the dollars in 25, 26, but we're not going to pay you until 26, 27. They defer it to the following year. That's one trick that they do. Another trick that they do is they say, you know what, we're going to deficit your LCFF for the following year. which is another trick that they've done. And they were going to do that to the tune of like 8% or something like that during COVID. Eventually pulled away from that. Those are the types of things that they do. They don't hit you in the current year because they know your hands are tied with the bulk of your expenses being in salary and benefits. They know that we have March 15th deadlines to issue layoff notices, which means that if we're already in the middle of the year, we can't lay off until next year. So they know that and they recognize it, and so they generally push those out a year.
Other unexpected costs could be we hired special ed teachers. They leave mid-year, then we have to go out for an agency.
I was gonna say that.
That's it. Sorry, I took your answer. 20% increase there. So yes, we do have insurance coverage if a tree falls on a roof and the roof gets broken. We can use insurance for the most part for that. Settlement agreements are probably the big one for us for most districts. Or any other litigation would probably be the most unexpected cost. So one of the questions I got at the town hall kind of related to this is, like, how do we get here? Why are we deficit spending? Why is our reserve going down? You've all seen this before. I've showed it quite a bit. It's because of our LCFF revenues, 11,700 compared to the other districts in the county. And on the right-hand side compared to the statewide average for an elementary school district. So you're looking at, like I said earlier, $3,000 difference, multiply that by the ADA that we had last year, which is $1,641. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars. So the reason we're in this situation is that we have low numbers of low-income students, low numbers of foster youth, low numbers of multilingual learners. This is an affluent community. People that live here, for the most part, that can afford to live here, make decent money, well above the poverty line. And then when we're in community funded status, Prop 13 really, really hurts us. Like I said a few minutes ago, people that have lived here for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, very low tax base on their home, or they've passed it down to their children, has a low tax base there. So as a community, our tax base is very low compared to, the new family that just moved into town with a very high tax base.
We're also if you look at the ADA numbers, we're also kind of in that middle. We're not a big district, which gets more, this is ADA and you can see the total. We're not a big district, but we're also not a teeny district.
That's right.
So we kind of get squeezed in that way as well. We're big enough that it's, your fixed costs are often the same whether you're a one school or 5 schools, and the more schools you have, the more students you can amortize a lot of your fixed costs.
Yeah. The districts that have the hardest time are the districts that are in basic aid, but are just barely into basic aid, or they're in LCFF and they're just barely in LCFF, which is exactly where we are. Right? So we're kind of in the worst case scenario from a funding perspective. It's a revenue issue. This was a note that we just got from MCUE regarding budget adoption. The underlined parts there are the important parts to really look at. Essentially, we're deficit spending at an unsustainable rate, and the district is required to submit a budget reduction and reserve restoration plan. So Chris and I have already been talking about when we're going to do the next iteration of the Budget Advisory Committee. We're going to have to go back to that team, part of the Plan B. What cuts are we going to make? And, how are we going to balance this budget?
And if I could add one thing to that, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
This statement right here, the last sentence, is tied directly to the board's reserve requirement. So when they talk about restoration, they want us to restore back up to 10%. Because that's what we have said is we need to be at.
How soon are they requesting this plan? Did I miss that?
If we
want it
change
with
our
first
policy, if the policy changes, then we would restore, we would never do that, right?
When are you thinking of getting the gang back together?
Chris, did you find a date for that?
I think we are putting it together. We'll get it out this week.
It's probably gonna be in the late fall.
Can you say a parcel tax is our plan to do this, or do they wanna see cuts as the plan? Can reserve restoration include revenue restoration, or is it all
I don't think we can
budget
count on that.
reduction?
I don't think we can count on that.
Phantom.
So they need a
phantom
plan
rate.
B
Yeah.
plan.
I
if we
think, and
don't.
that's exactly what we did last year. Plan A, go out to the community and ask for parcel tax renewal and increase. Plan B, make cuts. And I think we basically just need to do that same thing this year. Plan A, which we'll vote on later in the year, or which you all will vote on later in the year. And then Plan B, and what I'm talking about at the town halls is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million cuts. So even deeper than we did last year.
What does MCOE do if you don't do what they ask you to do?
I haven't gotten there yet.
I'm guessing more strident letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my
How
next
many
question,
warnings do we get?
and then my other kind of, is if we can't make payroll, so we have a cash flow issue or something like that, where do we get the money from, and then how much does it cost for us to acquire that money? Do we have to take out loans? Do we have to, what do we?
So let me take it, because that's two different questions. So first, you asked, what will the county do? They can provisionally approve our budget, meaning they can push us into a qualified status and say, you must do these things. So they don't have to accept our budget as it's presented to them. So that's number one. They would likely do that with us, only because they know that you blink and our estimated actuals in June will have an additional year on there.
Right.
And at that point, we know that we'll have to pull $5 million of revenue out of our parcel tax revenues, and we would be negative.
And that's for the 3-year plan.
That's the third year of the multi-year at our June adoption next year. So between December and June.
June
is
of this school year, next.
this current school year. They know that that's very little time, so they will probably push us that direction. So that is not really an option. And it doesn't mean that we have to say we're going to make the cuts necessarily in the second year of the multi-year, because again, the multi-year projection is a 3-year plan, but they do want to see that planned.
Right.
The other part to your question is, if you ran out of money, what would you do? Well, first of all, the only time you should be running out of money is if it's just a cash flow issue, because you shouldn't get to the point where you actually run out. So if it's just a cash flow issue, the County of Marin has something called a TAN, a tax anticipation note, where we can borrow against the county. So we can go negative, and what ends up happening is they charge us negative interest. So rather than get interest income on our money, we pay to the pool as a whole, so that the pool is kept whole.
But that's a short term.
It's a short term.
That's a short term thing. That's not you actually ran out of money.
It's you ran out of money, but it's only because of when you are receiving your dollars.
If we got to that level, we'd be in state receivership.
Yeah, I was gonna say. at what
Going
point
to your
does
next
that-
question, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the presentation, that's what I have for you all today. So essentially, just in review, it's our policy says 10%. This is why we have a reserve. Here's how we compare to other districts in the area. Here's what other organizations do across the state. This is why we're in this position. And here's what the county has just recently told us.
So what are we doing with this eventually, this information? Are we gonna decide on what we should determine as our percentage?
Yeah, so I think tonight is just an open discussion, and if you have direction for staff to bring something back to you later for a vote, we can do that.
Okay.
If we wanna change the percentage up or down, we can always do that. But I think this is a worthwhile conversation given the state of our budget. And if we just name it and pause on it and come back to it next school year, that's fine too.
As you can see from stress eating, that it's.
Yes.
It was interesting because I got this letter from the county of Marin. I was like, great, I've never seen that wording on there before. So I was like, we need to discuss this percentage that we have as a board policy, like why we have it, do we still need it, is it still relevant? We haven't discussed that as a board here as a whole, and so I wanted us to be able to talk about it.
I think it would be great to put that, to just dive into that further. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
Okay. Well, just that, what is the recommended evaluation process? I mean, does the county, does the state have that we can look at our numbers, like more with a formula of some kind? Does that
reserve number?
No, our, yes, the percentage, yes, our reserve percentage. I feel like that I would like to feel confident that that's the right number for our district, that 10%.
So that's really just a board decision.
Right.
There's nothing at the state level. The state would only
Right.
say that our requirement is 3%.
Right.
So they wouldn't enter that discussion at all.
Well,
So-
no, I don't mean enter the discussion, how did we arrive at 10? Like,
Again,
I wanna reevaluate that.
so the way we arrived at that initially was because 10% was roughly what 2 months worth of payroll was at that point. And so you have 10% there. The CBO groups would say 17% because it's 2 months worth of operating expenses, which includes accounts payable and things of that nature as well.
The other thing I remember historically was that decision was made after an era of being well over that 10%. So as far as a board decision making a 10% board policy well under what you've historically always been at was a lot easier than making a board policy over what you're at now. It's a lot like us sitting in these seats now is a lot more difficult than when they were sitting in the seats making that reserve policy in terms of the consideration. So
And I remember when I came on, there was a lot of concern among some members of the community that we have these big reserves and yet we're not paying our teachers enough. And it goes back to the one-time dollars, like you can't count on this. And we're seeing that now, the 3 years, I think we're at what, 5% out or something, 6%? Thus, this warning letter. So that's a concern that it makes sense to have more, but the community doesn't like that you're just sitting on, this proverbial money tree that we have hidden. And so that was a concern.
And I see it in a couple different ways. If you're adding to your reserve year over year over year, you kind of have a fiduciary responsibility to spend that money in that year for those kids, whether you're paying staff or building out intervention programs or, improving facilities. You should really be spending most of, if not all of, the money that you get in that year. If you're increasing your reserves, the way we're going is the opposite direction, right? So to your point, we're at this place where, okay, we've got to press pause on the deficit spending quick and think about building reserves. But the only way you build reserves is not giving raises, right? And reducing your spending.
In today's environment,
where we're
we
at
are
today, right? And I would venture to guess that the community's ask would be, first, let's pay teachers, then let's build back the reserves, is my guess is where would be. So this is kind of more of a long-term, this is not something we're gonna do next year, but over the next 3 to 5 years, how do we get back to 10%? Is 10% the number? Is it 7%? Is it just 3? Like, do we wanna move it up to 17?
the other part of thoughts that I have, and part of this thing is if we have feedback, we can get it too, is conversations around that reserve level. It's at 10%. Is it that we won't ever budget, like the third year out can never be lower than 10%, or we never want to be when we get to the actuals below 10%, so that you might be okay. And I think this
Teetering below for a little while.
this might go to the language, and I haven't gone through the actual verbiage in all of the reserve policy, but we might look at that reserve policy language and maybe refine it a little for something that's like, the farther out you go, your delta beyond the 10% can vary by whatever we might say, something or another, but that we never want to have actuals be below that 10% so that it's a clarification?
Because when I read the policy at the beginning, when I was putting
I
this
don't think it
presentation together,
specifies.
it's not crystal clear about whether that 10, the assumption is that 3% is in the multi-year projection, right, in year 3. Therefore, the assumption is the 10% is also there, but we're not specific about whether the 10% is actuals or whether it's the year 3. So that could be a shift that you all want to make.
Which could give us a little bit more leeway for the farther out you get, the more unknown you have. So maybe it's okay to, but the closer in you get, the less you want to be.
But this is gonna be a jarring,
Do we have more questions?
oh no.
Oh, yeah.
More questions? Okay.
Thank you for.
I'm gonna let it go out to public comment. I know that there are people who may wanna comment on this, so if you'd like to come up and please do. Just, if you would like, you may say your name so people listening know who's talking, but it's not a requirement.
I'm Deanna Subtitles. We are RVTA co-presidents and we're Hidden Valley teachers.
I'm Sarah Horkey. President, thank you for letting us speak. We wanted to just thank you for the presentation, learning a little bit more about our board policy with the budget and the reserves and for future. We also have a statement from RVTA that we'd like to make.
Yes, the fiscal cliff is real. We have learned that. On the bright side, we, on behalf of RVTA, we really wanted to express our gratitude to all of you. Sincerely thank you for your continued dedication to our district and your collaborative efforts. It really is noticeable. I listened in over the summer, I think it was, when you were onboarding the interim board member, and wow, I was so impressed. At first I was like, oh, I gotta listen and see what's happened, and then it just went on and on and on. And but you know, it was I just felt, and as you all kept mentioning also that or how lucky we were that we had, you know, not one but several community members that were really ready to commit and dedicate themselves, and in fact just want to also acknowledge, I think, people that are in the room here that are still doing a lot for us, and express our gratitude for that. We're also really grateful for our strong parent community, and most recently at the first of the two town halls that we just had last week, as we prepare for another parcel tax campaign, it was great to reflect back and then move forward. The information that's being shared through the town halls, here at the board meetings, and the mailers that have been gone out, it's been really great and detailed, clear, and essential. We really think it's important that that information, as stark as it is, that it be out and out to the community regarding the revenue, district revenue, and the potential impact on our programs.
And in particular, we want to highlight the difference, highlight the differences our reading intervention specialists make for our most vulnerable students. Through careful assessments and targeted direct instruction, they ensure all students have the support they need to succeed. And this is especially vital to the teachers taking on the challenge of implementing a new curriculum that's rigorous from one that we had before, and requires the additional support of for those students not falling through the cracks. We also deeply value the work of our counselors as students' emotional and behavioral needs continue to increase. Their expertise and their presence on our campuses are indispensable to the well-being of our school community. So as the school year begins, we warmly invite you to visit our sites. We recognize the many demands on your time and energy, and we deeply appreciate the commitment, creativity, and care you bring to your volunteered situation. We know it's not easy work, and we're grateful that you choose to do it for the benefit of our students, families, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public commenters?
I'm Antoine, their parent. This conversation about reserve and the percentages, I think a couple points I kind of want to make is that sure, the 25% average, state average is much higher than what they have, but how is it even relevant given how far we are from the state average revenue, right? So we are, I just calculated 4.6 million away from the state average revenue. So I don't see how it's relevant that we are far away from it average reserve figure if we are also 4.6 million away of average revenues. We can't get both, and it just doesn't work, right? You can't have both. So while I understand that that's state average, I don't see how it's relevant to what we have. The same way San Rafael is really truly good comparison, because as you show always on that curve, San Rafael is so much higher than us, so that makes sense that they can afford that. The one thing in particular I would encourage, I guess, you to think about is in terms of the optics this conversation might have of rebuilding the reserves, what kind of high percentage we want for the people who would then be asked to pay more taxes. So as somebody who canvassed a lot and talked to a lot of people, I think if we're going to go with the message that we have to rebuild reserves, I'm not so sure people are going to want to vote to increase their taxes to do that. So I just wanted to kind of have that kind of add that angle that, yes, obviously we have to acknowledge we might need to change the policy, the percentage number, but I just want to kind of highlight that there's this other side of the equation that might make it much harder for us to even get that parcel tax, and then obviously everything is going to be relevant if we don't. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comment?
PJ Pfeffer, Manor Parent. Thank you for the presentation. I think this is a important conversation for the district. I also want to make sure that I remember to say that I agree with Anya's point on the state averages not being particularly relevant. That, you know, I was reading through the California School Board Association publications about reserves, like when Prop 98 passed and a bunch of other things. And it's really, they actually highlighted how many school districts there are under 1,000 students, and under 300 is when you get to the 5% cap. And in those places, they actually have the formula is not just a 5% or 4%. They say it's like $64,000 reserve award that. So it's the scale of the numbers is very different, and you know these reports and the suggestions are obviously driven by fair enough school district administrators who if your bias is in, you know, even not, you know, maliciously, you're going to skew towards making sure you never have to go to the state and say, hey, we didn't have enough money. And if you don't spend it all, you know, it's a bummer. But you're just going to err on that side. And you know, I like the line of questioning that Trustee Landels-Cobb was going on in terms of why are we really considering the big issues when setting a high reserve number? Because we're screwed either way. If those like big catastrophes come, like if you see a COVID drop in revenues, you're not going to make it up with reserves. You're going to rely on this is affecting everybody, and so the state or the federal government is going to step in, and that's going to be your you know, unbudgeted reserve. And I like the idea. I mean, I see it more as budgeting for unforeseen expenses, and we are on, you know, consistent theme with us with service expenses being the big red light here, because for 2018 through 2021, every year our expenses were lower than what was projected. I know that's going to be tightening down as we get rid of unfilled positions, things like that. But, you know, the district doesn't have a history of very high overall variance of expenses being more than what's budgeted. And so their expenses are predictable. I also like that Tyler mentioned spending money in a fiduciary context. First time not fiduciary duties not brought up in the context of cuts or not spending, because you have a fiduciary duty also to all of the students currently in the district. Like every year there's a class year of kids, so it's their last year in the district, and if you're saying we didn't spend money, or we wanted to make sure that we didn't go too far in our reserves, so we cut 8th grade music or something like that, those kids are being shortchanged, and if you don't need those reserves, it's all for nothing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have any other public comment? No? Okay. So bring it back for us for discussion. I just want to say personally, I asked to have this put on the agenda because we as a board have not discussed this policy. Aside from hearing about it regularly, we have not discussed it. We did not set it. As 5 of us, we did not. So I wanted to make sure we all had a chance to hear what it's about. Given the letter that I did get from MCOE and what they did say at the very end of it, I just want to make sure we all had an opportunity to hear. I'm not saying that we're going to build up the reserve to 25%. I'm saying we need to have a discussion openly so people can hear us learning about it and why and the ramifications of how it looks. So that is just why it's here. And I know that it might optically look bad, but honestly, like, we do need to have a discussion about this. So I'm not going to hide it.
Rachel, I really appreciate it because as I'm new and learning and just gathering all the information, I don't know these things. And so it's helpful to, like, why is it 10%? Why is the state 3% so different than the state average of 25%? Like, all of that, I think it is extremely important for us to discuss. And I don't know, I really feel like somebody probably wants to know this also. Somebody listening, somebody here, like, I think it's a really important discussion to have because, I mean, they're certainly not arbitrary numbers. So learning why they are there, not that it really, like, yes, it's not relevant to the revenue we need to pay our teachers more, which is our main priority, but just generally, it is relevant. And so I appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate the public comments too. I think that, you know, 2 of you are very well educated on this topic, but a lot of people are not. And so it's important we talk about it.
I thought an interesting point, making the connection between our revenues and state average revenues versus our reserve and state average reserves, and just it was just kind of I hadn't thought about it in that way, and it was just an interesting thought for me to kind of consider as it relates to this board policy and what you all want to do moving forward.
I do want to say that as I was sitting here, the 25% was not my beacon, and I want to be clear. I personally would never agree to that being our beacon. I think that's fiduciarily ridiculous. I think it was there, and help me understand, my assumption, it was there to just give us some perspective.
That's right.
As to what the state average is,
That's
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know, because I just was not going in that direction. Thank you for providing that, though. It's interesting to see that but that's because you have these really, in the state, you have these, we're talking Los Angeles, we're talking, up in Sacramento, there's some very large school districts that have a lot of money. So that's gonna bring that percentage up.
The largest report in Madera, just right down the road, is at almost 40%. And if you keep going down the road to Reed or Ross, they're close to 90% reserve. So
right.
That to me is an irrelevant. Like,
yeah, it's
But I do think that having the context of 25, not as a recommendation, but as a, where are we in comparison?
Yeah.
So, well, Chris, you were saying that when it's a smaller district, they have to have bigger reserves, right?
You generally want bigger reserves, yes.
So technically, even though we had like 1641 on our books last year for student enrollment, we should have had, since we're so much lower than the state average, we should have a bigger reserve, is what you were saying. Is that how that works? Like, I'm trying to figure this out.
No. And honestly, what makes me nervous isn't necessarily the reserve percentage that we're at. Even if we're below 10%, that doesn't cause concern for me. What causes concern for me is the combination of the reserve and the deficit. It's that
The
deficit
deficit spending.
is what causes concern for me.
That's one of the things that I was thinking about, both from the comments and in general, was kind of time horizon perspective. And for me, again, I think it's us, whatever the percentage is, it's all in the context of what direction are you going on your budgets.
Yeah.
And so if you're kind of a district that is a balanced budget or maybe a little bit of fluctuation, the idea of like, do you really need 25%? Because, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. If you're heading in a downward trajectory, or your CBO says, hey, there's a fiscal cliff coming, and when we look out, we're falling off that cliff. I mean, 25% sounds like a whole lot, but we basically went from 23% down to 10 in 5 years. So that's a pretty, I mean, that was a slide. Now we had COVID, so we had the COVID masking some sliding, and then we had a cliff. We had a bit more of a cliff situation than you might normally have if you didn't have some major pandemic thing. But I think it's the idea of, for me, the fiduciary responsibility isn't necessarily the fixed percentage, but being a fiduciary and keeping my time horizon and my trajectory and my directionality awareness up there. So,
I mean, this is a good slide for that. The exact point, right? We're well above Kenfield and Miller Creek, but we're deficit spending at a much higher rate than them. So we've got a higher percentage, but the direction we're going in is not the right direction. Where Miller Creek and Kentfield have a more balanced budget, much lower percentage, but they might be less worried than we are given the deficit spending.
Right, exactly. So it's that deficit spending combined with the percentage that is on my thinking cap. And so, and again, in terms of timing for making this decision or to whatever, I do think that it's like we have to dig ourselves out of a hole, get to a place where we're not deficit spending before we start considering, okay, now if we have extra, how are we going to allocate the extra to teacher salaries or building up the reserve? We're not there yet. We just got to get out of the hole before we can spend money on anything. Like right now, it's can't spend any money more, can't spend money, can't keep going in the hole, and we need to increase our revenues, and then we can, figure out how to do that. Because
And I think it really, just bringing it back to the individual side, when you talk about rainy day funds in your own bank account. 25 years ago, a salary, I'll just say you made $100,000 25 years ago. So that's a chunk of change, eat out, get a steak, whatever, you can pay for a lot of things. If you're still making that same salary in 2025, you might, consider, it's just the rate of inflation, expenses, or teacher salaries, nothing is keeping up with what we've been bringing in with this old parcel tax.
That's right.
It's the parcel tax income is antiquated, and it's no longer meeting our needs. I think that has to really be, the message, that the increase is not because we're not fiscally responsible. The increase is because it's an antiquated amount that is not relevant to the expenses of which our district demands today.
And had we not had a 23% reserve when we did 5 years ago,
there you go. That's why
we would not be having this conversation at this moment in this time, because we wouldn't have had the money to be able to do it.
Exactly.
We would not have been able to have made the decisions that we made over the last 2 or 3 years, where we were still deficit spending and we still gave raises, not enough, granted, but we were still able to do some of that even in a deficit, partially because we had that reserve. If we had been at a 10% reserve 5 years ago, this whole reality would have been completely different than we are now. So keeping that in mind as we go forward again.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And I like to your point, Shelley, thinking about getting more specific with the language. And again, this doesn't have to be done at the next meeting or even this year, right? We can bring this back next school year and kind of have a discussion around it. But being more specific about when is that 10%? Because the assumption is in year 3, but is it year 2 or is it in the current year? And if we want to get more specific as a team, then we can do that.
You could even get even wonkier and have it be a ratio of deficit spending to blah, blah, blah. I mean, you could even tie it to some sort of directionality. If we have an X% drop in revenue, X% drop in net income, then whatever. I mean, that might get a little complicated, but at least it would tie it to that directionality of our budget.
It's not arbitrary.
And maybe it doesn't need to be a fixed percentage. It could be a rolling percentage based as a percentage of something else or something like that. I don't know.
And if you decided that it really was in the third year out, maybe the percentage is 8%, not 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Or but if it's in the current year, maybe it's 11%, not 10%. And that could be part of the discussion.
Yeah.
If you all wanted to do that.
And could it be possible that this reserve amount, like you're probably implying, is that should be revisited every year? Should be a yearly thing.
Right.
To look at the reserve and to say, where are we and what's this gonna look like, as you have done for us. But really, I mean, you have a policy-based percentage. The policy maybe should be revisited. And that, and instead of having us look back and say, well, 5 years ago we determined this, right?
Yeah, and it could be, it's probably super more complicated to say that our reserve policy is 2 months of X, Y, and Z expenses, because then you have a rolling percentage change based on whatever your expenses are. And if your expenses increase, then your reserve increase. If your expenses decrease, or some sort of appropriate cost or revenue driver. I don't know if that's too complicated for budgeting, or it probably causes other kinds of unintended consequences that I'm not thinking of now. But I think, and again, we gotta dig ourselves out of a hole before we come back to this conversation, because.
Well, and again, I just want to make sure that this was a conversation that we were able to have, because I feel like we haven't been able to have this conversation so far. Do we have any more conversation about it though, before moving on?
I just think the one thing I would say is I think the timing is right, even though I think someone might see this as a distraction from the core mission here. It is directly tied to the unaudited actuals we just saw from Chris in that the last presentation. You're seeing where our percentages are, so it's worthy. And I think, Chris, you make a good point. Maybe every other year, we revisit it just for discussion, and maybe there's no action at all, but at least we're highlighting it and discussing it.
All right. So with that, I'll move on. Great. Okay. Our next item is recommended approval of resolution 012526 to adopt the GAN limit.
That would be me again. This is one of those perfunctory type of things that dates back to Prop 13 in the 70s and all of that. And in essence, what it does is it sets our threshold for spending, and it's a moving number every year. And all we're doing is just agreeing to the numbers that are provided through the SAC software and taking a look at all of that. So again, it's just a perfunctory resolution that is required by the state.
And saying we won't spend more money than they're giving us.
Right.
In essence.
Like, could they give us more? So we could be maybe in a position where this is something we need. Right. Do we have any questions for Chris? No. Do we have any public comment on this item? No. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to us for discussion. Any comments on that one?
I find this strange.
This will be one of the things as you move forward. There's a number of things that have been around for a while that life has changed, procedures have changed, policies have changed, but things.
It's still required of us, even though it's irrelevant. So we do it once a year. Yeah. All right. I will. If there's no more conversation, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 012526 to adopt the GAN limit.
Great.
Second?
First and second. Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. All right, I'm gonna approve that. Thank you, Chris. Our next item is presentation on summer 2025 facilities projects.
And this is actually going to be Des. So come on up, Des. So Des McKissock is our Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Facilities, and he's going to discuss the projects that we had going on in the past year, mainly in the summer.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to have our annual update. This year we no sooner did we finish graduation at Whitehill, and then it's go time. And we, as always, we try and pack like 11 or 12 weeks into 8.5 weeks. We tackled a couple of large bid projects this year. The roof, the MPO at Hidden Valley, and of course the asphalt projects at 2 of them at White Thomas and 1 at Manor, as well as DSA Shade project for the TK playground at Hidden Valley. As always, there's always a couple of pressing painting projects we have to try and coordinate. And then this year we also, I've noticed over our walkthroughs with the board and with Tyler on that, the roots of these redwoods like to try and seek water, and they've played havoc with their walkways and their asphalt. So that was something that I wanted to just make some of our campuses, from a safety perspective, just tackle the trip hazard problem. And then, as always, we've pressed on with our campus beautification. It's getting easier. We just give them a refresh. We normally do that the last week before school, and it just makes the curb appeal of our campuses for that first day of school. Students and parents are dropping off. It makes a difference. We also bought we have our own paint sprayer, and Johnny's got very adept at using it on our curbs and also on our blacktops. He tackled that the last week of before school came back, and it just gives it a little bit of a wow factor. Yeah, so super proud of that. But I've got some before and after photos, which always make for some interesting viewing. So we'll start off at Whitehall. For those of you that have spent any time there, the 7th and 8th grade courtyards are pretty modern, but the 6th grade courtyard needed a birthday. So the photos on the left show the arbor of the library, and why someone would put cloth on top of that, I have no idea. So once it gets saturated, it just seeps into the wood, so that the middle top is what one of those beams look like. It's just water's just been sitting on there and seeping in there. So plus it was flat, so we had to add a gradient on top of those beams. We replaced a third of those beams, and then we put in a similar sheathing that we used at Brookside last year. It's clear, so it provides some shade, a little bit of shade in the summer, but also some protection for them students to at recess and that during the winter. But by doing that, when you look at the 100 building, it just needed a birthday. So what we did there is we painted it, and then we removed the grass areas and added new turf, artificial turf. Benches have gone in there now, so now it's more practical, it's so much easier to maintain, and it aesthetically looks so much better.
And by grass, you're referring to the weeds.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, and then we were, on October 3rd, the Professional Development Day, we're replacing the shade structures and the triangular shade structures in the 8th grade amphitheatre. So, Wade Thomas got some special attention this summer. The recess area by the 4th, 5th grade buildings, thankfully there's been picnic tables there, because how no one's tripped and chipped a tooth on there, I have no idea. So we had to tear that out. As you can see in the top 2 right-hand photos, 2-inch layers of asphalt, so much better. And then the bottom blacktop area, took out the old Gaga pit. We've got a new one ready to replace that. But the trip hazards there, we had to take out root areas by the larger playground. It was sealed 10 days ago, and it's going to get painted on October 3rd on the Official Development Day. So, as I said, the problems with the tree roots and that, between the staff room and the music room and leading down to the 4th, 5th grade building, we took out concrete areas We ground out asphalt areas, and then out in the front area, we used a new product. Johnny did that himself, and Julie knew nothing about this. She came back here and was just blown away. Like she was so appreciative. She was also enjoyed me as far as campus security goes. We added a couple of gates, one on Woodland there. We had to replace the concrete there as well, and also one between the library and the NPR. It's not intrusive, but it just makes our campus a little bit safer. And as Tyler alluded to earlier, Julie wants to get another one by the office area to stop the TK runners. Hidden Valley, I love that shot there. So it's not, unbeknownst to most people, the roof on the NPR was up the left-hand side. It would have struggled to get through another winter. So we went out to bid for this, and very happy to use State Roofing Systems out of San Leandro. They were terrific to work with, did a great job, and the end product is, it's awesome. They did a really good job. I've actually, don't tell Mr. Carson, but I've been on the roof since. And it's there. We got it just in the nick of time. There was no water damage to the old roof. So now it's good for another 20, 25 years. I think I may have shown you this one before. There's so much wood fascia on our campuses, on our buildings, and it's just been let go for so long. So there was a little bit of rot in the curved fascia on the admin building. So in those situations now, we're adding 2 lots of flashing to try to prevent from having to paint it in the future. And we needed to do that over spring break because we had the shade structure, bottom right, the shade structure was going in over summer, and we didn't want to interfere with our work. So super proud of the way the roofing project went, and we've got a little bit of public work stuff to do in the upper car park area, but we've got a couple of other things, Chris, to move on. So if you look at the top left-hand picture, that is the end of the metal building. There's 2 different types of tan and 2 different types of green on there. So it needed, I decided to give it a paint job. They painted the benches and everything there as well. And the bottom wheels, because we had these projects going over the summer, the maintenance department tackled, well, not the maintenance department, Johnny's labour of love, the Hidden Valley Amphitheatre. If you had to walk that campus between February and May, then you would have seen Johnny working on that. He did a phenomenal job, and he had to do a lot of work replacing more than just the seats and that. There was a lot of concrete work in that to be done as well, and the storage shed at the back as well. We replaced structurally, we repaired it, and then we put some T111 on the outside and that and painted it. So, Manor. Major concern with Manor was the upgrading of the TK yard. So the top left photo will show you what it looked like. There was 3 diseased trees there that we had to take out, and trying to find the best possible use of that area. And you'll see the middle photo at the top. We took them out, we cut the asphalt, we put in turf there. The markings on the right have been done, and we did a slurry coat over the entire area, which goes all the way back to the art room. As Chris mentioned earlier, we had to make the play structure TK compliant. So there's a lot of work involved in that, taking out some of the old equipment, replacing it, and then redoing the turf. The TK fence is in over by between the library and room 3. But if you actually go over by the art room and look at the whole area, it came out really well. There's a lot of coordination to get that done. And as well, we did some concrete grinding around the front drop-off area as well. Brookside. Amanda's been pleading with me, along with the Brookside parents, about repainting and redoing the staff office area and staff room. This is the second project I've worked with the Brookside parents. A lot of coordination. They like to show a lot of initiative, but sometimes you have to rein them in sometimes, Chris.
Hey, that's my wife.
But the end result, it looks, the staff room area looks amazing. It really does. And I also want to shout out the Emily and her garden party. I don't know if any of you made it back to the Brookside garden area. It's phenomenal. The gazebo area and back there is terrific. And now they've set their sights on between the amphitheatre and the basketball court. So that's something we'll be tackling this year. Along with the bridge, which will, Chris probably knows more about that, but it's with DSA right now, and we'll know more about that in a couple of months.
Is the bottom one?
Yes.
The bottom one where you have a fence around
so
it.
I'm not sure they showed you that before. So
that's what I was.
Yeah. So we took care of that in spring break, because students or community members just come through there, and that post and rail just.
There's a bathroom right on the other side, so
I know. So just makes the area more accessible.
Happy to hear that you're tackling the amphitheater, the part between the amphitheater and the basketball.
Yeah.
Because that is like the community's favorite bike jump and definitely a safety hazard.
I was there tonight, Tyler, at 5:30, and there was guys. I was walking up to check one of my custodians, and you probably seen it, Daniel. You probably gone on the loop around there. And the guys were coming around there and almost throwing up their hands to sort of say, "Hey, you're on that bike track."
Austin caused a lot of damage on an e-bike just 2 weeks ago, jumping off.
No way.
Yep. So, and
one thing that no one really sees over the summer is the work that my custodial team, my maintenance guru Johnny, and my groundsman throughout the summer, they work their tails off. They really do. And we've built on some of the summer team cleaning philosophy that I brought in. We're working smarter. We're not using stripper anymore. We're working more as this just needs more camaraderie. So this year, there's always been, we can never get finished and get back to our own campuses by the end of August. So we had all our elementary schools done by middle of July, and with the TK classrooms, more TK classrooms and more furniture and supplies being delivered, they were so appreciative to get back there to assemble furniture and play sets and everything like that. So that's something I've worked on, and I'm really happy to say they did a phenomenal job this summer. The two photos on the left are from Wade Thomas. They shampooed the floor, a carpet just says, and they've done another area twice. It's not working, this tarp. And I went in there, and it just looks tired. And I showed Chris went and checked it out, and I got a bid, and we recarpeted 5 classrooms at Wade Thomas over the summer. As always, the baubles take a pounding, and I just wanted, that's something that Johnny tackles. Also, for some reason, when they built the kiln room at Whitehill, they didn't rodent-proof it. So Emma does a phenomenal job up there. So Johnny rewired it, and now it's rodent-free. So she's super appreciative of that. Harking back to what I was saying about my custodians, you'll see them inside a classroom, a reflection of that, and then outside cleaning the concrete. And I took a photo of room 10 at Hidden Valley. Christina Workman had the shift classrooms over the summer, and I went in there the second week of August to see what was going, and I'm like, this is my first day of school, that's the sort of classroom I'd like to walk into, So that's what we strive for. So all in all, just another super productive summer.
And I just want to say that this was not just a super productive summer. Because we had additional money from the sale of Deer Park and we had gotten input from the community about facilities projects, this was like a doubly busy summer, and the team did a phenomenal job. And Des, that's your leadership. Johnny, it's you. It's, our whole M&O team, our whole custodial team. They really do a phenomenal job. And, our campuses are aging, which means there's a lot of extra work for only 3 guys to do 5 campuses and the fields. It's a lot of work with very little funding and very little personnel. So I'm just super proud of what you all were able to accomplish this summer.
Thanks,
truly.
Do you have any more questions for Des?
Des, with your team, it's got to be a huge list of these are the things that have to get done at these schools.
Yeah.
And how do you determine what rises to the top with your team? Especially because there's so many labors of love here.
Yeah, so
just curious about that process.
I look at them as like we prioritize 2 or 3 times a year, and then I'll get some bids on that, and I was like, well, that's exorbitant. We don't have that in the budget. And like, I know there's a hole in the carpet in the library at Brookside.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we can't replace the entire carpet. Do I shift the bookshelf on top of it, or do I maybe do a replacement square? But like going out to bid, the bid process and that, like, for a roof, there might be a $80,000 difference, the highest bid and the lowest bid, and they got the same bid specs, and so I'm frugal to a point, but if something has to be done, like the NPR roof at Hidden Valley, it has to be done.
So you have big things, nice to have things, and down to nice to do things, right? And so you work as a team as to say, let's tackle.
And like with Johnny, like we do a lot of in-house stuff. We've got a silicone product we use on our roofing now, and if we can tackle that, it means it works.
Do it yourself,
And it's always good when you bring in professionals. Just that this is what we do over here. We have it, and they're like, oh, that's a great product, and we've got Johnny and I got our skill set allows us to do it in-house. So it saves us a little money, so therefore, now we can get 5 carpets for Wade Thomas. But the most pressing things, like if someone had tripped on a trip hazard at Wade Thomas, Chris, then that rises to the top.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've noticed, and I'm just like, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So, but I also lean on Chris. Chris will say this has to be done, and just having a different set of eyes. Like Johnny will see something, and then we did the walkthroughs we did with the principals. Tyler, I've still got that spreadsheet. It's just like this has to be done, and we were fortunate to have some of that Deer Park money.
So you do get input from the principals.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
We look at warm, dry, and safe, and then we're also looking at the scope of the project in terms of, can it be done during school? Can it be done during a break? So we have to kind of prioritize based upon all of these different things and what the funds are.
And then I always throw a wrench in the system by saying this is what needs to get done right away. And sometimes that's in alignment, sometimes it's not.
All right, any more questions? No, I'll go to public comment. Thank you, Des.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
Hi again from Manor. You might remember me talking to you'll remember I talk here every day, I guess. But anyway, a couple meetings ago, I talked about the asphalt project at Manor and how it looked not up to par at all. And then I followed up as to kind of like figure out, well, what really happened to there? Why the cracks weren't even filled? I mean, it was just the topsoil on top of things. It was a really poorly done job. And what I learned was astonishing to me and as a project manager. And so I'm going to preface this by saying that I am fully aware that it is not your job as a board to manage everyday projects. Like I did my homework, I understand that's not. But I think the reason I'm bringing this up is that I think like there's a larger system problem here that I think results in us essentially not being very efficient with little money we do have. And I do feel like that is where you come in, is that's your responsibility to make the system work better. So back to our asphalt project. There was a bid out to do a proper restripping of asphalt that goes through Thomas at Manor, where you actually like strip 2 inches down, everything is flat, everything is sealed like actual repavement. And that's what the bid was for. And there were 2 bids, one was 180, another one was like 250. 70K difference. Of course we have to go with a low bid. We went with a low bid. When I come on the first day of school, we don't have the asphalt redone. There's no new asphalt. The cracks are still there. The grass is already growing. All was done is some slurry was put on top without even like feeling the cracks. It was not repaved. That was what the contract was for. And so when I followed up, I learned that like that contractor said, oh, well, no, actually, even the contractor was required to do walkthrough. Oh, no, that would be too much. We can't do that based on the contract. So then we just did the way Thomas, they got the asphalt, and there was a little leftover money. We just did this useless job of making Manor just more hot because it's more black, but it didn't even fill the cracks. And that's where I'm like, how is it even possible from a project management perspective that we have a signed contract and somebody then can say, well, no, actually, I'm not gonna do the work for the money I signed the contract I'm gonna do, and we're just rolling with that? And then say, in essence, we spent this $200,000, but only half of the project got done, and we still get the box check that Manor got asphalt done, even though what's on the contract was not done, and the cracks are there. It's not actually got any better. There's some systemic thing here how, like if I'm a project manager, I would never sign up on that. And it's like a basic project management 101. And somehow we are okay with that. Like what kind of precedent does it set for next project? You go out for the bid, your contractor gonna come and say, here's my lower bid, you have to take low bid by the law, and then it just turns around and says, hey, no, actually I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, how does it even a thing? And I think that's where we need some sort of a system changes to how do we manage these things. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. I do appreciate all the hard work that Des and all the team does, but this was the contracted out, and the process of contracting out is where I'm having the issues with. Not with any all the amazing things you guys do. I just want to be clear on that.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comment? All right, with that, I'll bring it back up to us for discussion.
I'd like to hear what happened. I mean, you know, I don't know about that, but I'd like to hear what actually happened. Do you know, Chris?
I do, actually. First and foremost, we put a bid out and we got no bidders. So we put it out again and we got 2 bidders, and the bid was approved by the board at the end of June. As soon as they came, and actually, as parents may have noticed, during the Wade Thomas promotion ceremony, the company was out there measuring even during that time. And when they came to schedule the project, what they started discussing is changes to the project immediately. There were sections that needed to be cut out at Manor, which were done, in fact, and the entire Manor was not to be ground down as was done at Wade Thomas. It was a different layer of project. There was then disagreement immediately over square footages and also the scope of the project. They were discussing that immediately at Wade Thomas. And so at that particular point, we were starting to get into July. And there's an expectation that the project is going to get done. So we had to work with the contractor in order to get it done. Had we tried to enforce it, we would have ended up in litigation and no projects would have been done. So. It's one of those where you have to look at whether you can get a project done or not. And it wasn't just one project, it was two in two school sites. And so we worked with that contractor on the scope of the project. So, and they did do additional work that was above and beyond at manner from what was requested in certain areas. So.
Part of what I was going to say is I do think that our district does an amazing job of holding a lot of trade-offs, and the work that you all do in terms of creative problem solving that I've heard of examples of it over the years has been phenomenal. And the fact that you had, like, a couple years ago, you came in and gave a larger presentation on those wonderful shiny floors and the new product that you use, and doing the research to figure out problem solving, and from little things from the rat proofing, figuring out how to do rat proofing on one little corner or something to big huge projects. I think we are blessed to have that kind of in-house knowledge, skill, and just that can-do attitude, and also like caring for our kids in terms of their learning environment, because the people that our kids learn from are amazing, and the place and the environment that they learn in, I think, also is really important, and the caring for that definitely shows through. In part of the answer, so I've done a couple of I was in nonprofit facilities for a long time, and have done a couple of big multi-million-dollar projects on buildings, and learned that it's like that better, cheaper, faster triangle of trade-offs. So time, cost, and scope of it. And just like, what did you say about budgets? As soon as you make them, they're no longer what they were. Inevitably, facilities projects, it's almost exactly the day you sign that contract and they get in there, it's really rarely ever on those three variables of trade-offs exactly from the day that you start what it was when you contracted for. And so often, for example, like in asphalt projects that I've done before, you can measure it out, but you can only see the surface. And once you get into it, oftentimes you start thinking, I budgeted for, 3 inches everywhere, and you hit a spot where you're like, oh wait, no, that's gotta be 5 inches, because there's a root, and you didn't see it because it was under the whatever surface. So you start going, and then you have to do value engineering, they call it, and redo your scope. And that's where then you come back to your client and you say, here's an unforeseen circumstance that I ran into. Do you want it faster, cheaper, or you want to change the scope? And so that's where these guys are constantly having to manage those scope trade-offs with the time, which we have because we also have such a tight time frame. So you're tight on the time, we're tight on the budgets because we're required to take the lowest bid. So the most flexibility is on scope.
But to Anna's point, was the other bid, would that have met the needs of our requirements, right? I think that's her question, is like, how do we just make sure that we're clear on this is how I'm interpreting, what we're approving.
Yeah.
And if it's a subpar result for the same price that we approve, well, that's something we should look at. If we would have approved the other bid for, let's call it $80,000 more, which is a significant amount, would that have met the needs that our school required?
Problem is, we couldn't have you done that one because we're legally obligated to do the lower one. And Chris, was there a cost overrun at the Wade Thomas one?
Yeah, that was part of it because they didn't realize that they were going down as much, and so that was part of it.
So the priority was the Wade Thomas asphalt because it was in way worse condition. So the cost overrun on the Wade Thomas went up. You can only go above the bid by a certain percentage. So that was going to take us up to the 10%. So then we had to reduce the cost at Manor, which was part of the reason it didn't come to where we wanted. So, and I think, the larger question is, what accountability do we have with the contractor?
Yeah.
We could go back and sue them and spend a bunch of money suing them, and
From your opinion, would we use them again?
In terms of the actual work, I think their work was acceptable. I think what I would do is make sure that the scope is clearly understood. You put it in writing, you have it with the bid, but immediately some contractors potentially point to different things, and that's what happened with this. They pointed to the job log and said that somebody said something. Well, then you get into a he said, she said, and at that point, all you're doing is spending dollars in litigation and not getting the work done. And the work wouldn't have gotten done because it was already the end of June.
So we're only allowed to go 10% over on a so if you take a contract that's 70,000 less than the other bid, you're only allowed to go 10% over the bid that you took. So you could, theoretically, if you were going to increase and say, okay, well, let me go up to $70,000 more, which is what I would have paid, but we're not allowed to necessarily do that unless the $70,000 is 10% of it. So that's a requirement, which is frustrating. And you can't go back in at such quick notice to do an add-on bid, because you have to do walkthroughs and all that kind of stuff for every single contract, right?
So is what was done at Manor safe and sufficient, or are we looking into redoing it?
It is,
It's
yeah.
safe.
Yeah, and I'm happy to walk you through the campus to show you what the issues are. It's like some stuff that there was a rise that got ground down, and then the slurry seal that goes over it still has some of the grind marks on it, so it's not perfectly flat. Or there's cracks that are sealed, and the sealant is a soft sealant. So if you put your finger into it, your finger sinks into it. So it's not ideal, but it's better than it was. And it is darker, which is more heat. And there are no trees there anymore because those trees were, so it's a not a perfect situation. And this again comes down to understaffed, underfunded. We're doing everything we can with what we have. And if we had a bond, there'd be a whole different conversation. You could, do it up to, this community wants excellent facilities, and we just don't have the funds for it. So we have to get the most out of the staff that we have and the most out of the money we have. And I think that's another thing that I'm hearing is, let's make sure we get the most out of everything because we don't have much. So if we're gonna get a contractor, let's get one that is clear about the scope and, can do the bid to the correct standard.
Yeah, I think to what you said about a more detailed contract scope, that's probably the takeaway.
Potentially. Potentially. I mean, the biggest issue was that we didn't get any bidders the first time. And so that caused a 2-month delay in even getting it done.
Okay.
So, we would have been having those conversations with them instead of in early July. We would have been having conversations with them in June, and then, or May. And it would have been a very different conversation. So.
Appreciate the clarification.
I will say that I've been on the campuses and it's markedly aware, especially in White Hill, bringing the 6th grade buildings to the upper class unified the campus visually in a way that I think the 6th graders needed, instead of feeling like they were attending school in an army shanty and then hopefully moving on to the glorified white buildings. The match of color was perfect, and it just looks like one unified campus now, which I think finally is the last step of probably the charter situation that was there. So that was very, very noticeable. And I think it might be good to set up some more visiting the campuses. We did a wonderful tour, must have been 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
Where the trustees went to each campus with maintenance and looked around at the things that needed to get done, that were top of the list, understanding what's being done. and I think the takeaway, you know where every crack and crevice of everything is, Chris. You're like, this one spot here on this mural, right? This, you know, that to me says there's a lot of labors of love going into that, and it does not go unnoticed from me, Johnny. You're just a wonderful addition to the team. I think that your talents are something that I just go, you don't need to be here, but you are here, and it's just wonderful.
No, we need him there.
We need
I'm saying, we need you. He can have his own company, you know, no ideas, I have to say that. But I mean, anyway, I just want to say thank you. These buildings are falling apart as we speak.
They do look great. They really do.
Yeah.
Going to the back to school nights was really great to see all of the work. And Tyler pointed some of the stuff out to me, and when we met, you did too. But yeah, it's cool to see all of the schools when they get refreshes, because parents really notice it, and the kids kind of do, but
No,
the parents really do.
The kids noticed it. I took my kids with me to White Hill for
Oh,
the back
yeah.
to school
All
night,
the
and you
kids,
know
yeah.
there are 9th and 12th graders, and the first thing I didn't notice because I was driving, but they were both like, "Whoa, the 6th grade buildings got painted." I was like, "What?" But it was like immediate from both of them, and I was just like shocked. I was like, "Oh, you're right. It looks really good," but it was a big reaction from them. I was really surprised. So
Looks like a campus.
it looks great.
Looks great.
All of the campuses look great. I think the only one I didn't manage to get to for back to school night was Hidden Valley, because we had a board meeting here. But I popped around and I could see it when I was hiking the new roof from like where I was hiking in the hills. I was like, look at it glowing bright white. So yeah, I'm really happy with all the upgrades that you guys were able to do this summer. Thank you. For sure, it was a big improvement. And I will get back to Hidden Valley and poke around again. But it's probably this Friday for your Hidden Valley boots and barbecue.
Oh.
But yeah, the facilities look really great.
I would be interested if we scheduled another round.
Yeah.
I have them scheduled, so I'll have Teresa send out an email to you tomorrow, and if you're interested in signing up for one of them, we'll get you on the invite.
We can do groups of two trustees at a time.
Oh,
yeah.
The only other thing I was going to add that I think is an added complexity in the school environment, and I was reminded of it when you said kind of, somebody used the word refresh annual, is from a fiduciary perspective, from a thinking investing money in the long term that's different from like regular commercial real estate, is our annual cycle that we have. So I think there is an element of adding that refresh of painting or not necessarily like a long-term investment that we want to do every year, because there is this starting up of the school year attention, which is awesome and totally what we should be doing. But if you think about like a commercial building, if you have something in your wall that you need to fix, you might not paint it as soon as you might normally have wanted to paint it, because like, oh, we're saving the capital until we can rip this wall out and do blah, 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 so we're not gonna bother to repaint it. But we don't have the luxury of being able to do that sometimes because we wanna do this annual refresh. So I think you all do a really amazing job of being able to hold both of those in that way. That's a unique facilities challenge that other commercial real estate doesn't have, because we're not commercial real estate, we're running schools and we have annual cycles, and it's awesome that you guys can pay attention to both the long-term capital and the annual cycle of school starting every year, and do an amazing job of balancing all of that. So thank you, because it's noticed.
Do you have any more comments? Okay. So we don't have to make any sort of decision on this one, so I'll move on to consent actions. Did anybody want to comment? Thank you for attending. Does anybody have any questions on this? Want to pull anything out for discussion? No? Okay. Do we have any public comment on consent actions? All right, go ahead.
So just comparing the financial statements for the past 3 years, I'm sure, somebody I hope is thinking about this. This time in 2023, the object code 5800 sort of services amount total for at this point in 2023 was about $356,000. In 2024, it was about $533,000. And in this year's reports, it's already at $628,000. And I think when we budgeted this year, we budgeted services going down overall. So I don't know if this year maybe we're getting ahead of those contracts. But yeah, I also noticed, just looking up, just hearing the last comment and discussion, in the warrant summaries, we've already paid about $145,000 to the contractor that did the asphalting. Just don't know if, because, they're, even though they're responsible for the bid, for performance, if we expected something, even though we thought it's in our best interest to just get what we can from them, are we still paying the full contracted amount, and is there going to be another payment for like $35,000 somewhere coming up in the future, or if we lowered the payment amount in light of the lower amount of work that we got. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe any other public comment on it, consent actions? Okay, seeing none, do we have any discussion on consent? No? All right, so seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent action items.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Oh, yeah, I'll second.
Okay, which one dueling seconds here?
I will second, sure,
Okay.
yes.
Daniel?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. Moving on to board business. This is the time for committee updates, reports, and announcements by trustees. Strictly stuff that you're updating. It's not for commentary. It's not for discussion. It's just what you've been doing and what's coming up or the committees you're on.
I'll start. I attended the Safe Routes to School update last week. We were presented with the results of the prioritization process for the overlay maps to inform future walk audits, which is a big project that they've been undertaking for the past year, just to continue to find and audit the accident ratios that have happened on the walks as well as the bike routes. And we got statistics on injuries and incidents, of all incidents, not just the kids, but then the kids were taken out as well. Got updates from the towns and the county on the processes of funded projects, which they're still doing, and we heard about the new Marin County School Access Safety Action Planning process and how it's going to overlap with the Safe Routes to School, so they're bringing in the cities and towns as well. They're looking to encourage events and really bring some awareness to parents. A lot of parents don't understand that if they go to the Safe Routes to School website and they say, okay, my kid's gonna start biking, for example, to Whitehill or biking to Brookside, you can put in your address and it will tell you the safe route to go to schools. So you tell your kid, take this road to get here, whatever. So they're looking, they're going to be following up with Street Smart's communication contacts with the districts. I think Wendy's probably already, I don't know if she's reached out to you yet. But I think the next meeting, they're gonna be attending some San Anselmo and Fairfax BPAC meetings. And they're gonna present at the next meeting the future walk audits for the next school year. Oh, and another thing they brought up, the e-bike situation, that we should be prepared for a move, that right now they're just impounding the bikes. And the parents are saying, I already sunk $3,000 into this bike, I'll pay $100 to get it back, and my kid still gets to drive a motorcycle, essentially. So what they're gonna start doing is pushing to have parents ticketed themselves. So if your kid is pulled over and ticketed, it's no longer they're a juvenile, therefore it doesn't go on their record, it actually goes on the parent's record. So be prepared for that to come out soon. That's it. Oh, and I went to the Whitehill back to school, which was fantastic. Greatly attended. Whitehill is
is the redheaded stepchild of parent fundraising. So they are working this year to bring fundraising back to the schools. And a special shout out to a young man, I won't say his name on as a recording, but he stepped forward, a 7th grader, did a wonderful video presentation talking about how if each family gave $350 or give what you can, it will really help the school, I think, raise the money for some of the events, because fundraising falls off in middle school. It was good to see, and parents were already right there giving money in their seats. So good stuff. That's it for me.
Well, I'm attending my first Parent Equity Task Force meeting tomorrow night, so I'm excited for that one. White Hill Back School was fantastic. We had a kids in real life booth there as well. So trying to just bring that awareness to parents at White Hill. And that's it for me.
Okay. I've been busy. It's been fun. I went to Yes Board meeting, which the enthusiasm there is great. They're doing excellent, which is their fundraising. I mean, they're getting off to a really strong start, which is so great to hear. The Dine and Donate last night was extremely successful.
Awesome.
And then they're close to selling out for the Yes Fest, and there's so there's new people involved, including me, and so it was cool to kind of hear it all. What else did I do? White Hill Back to School night, which Chris thoroughly embarrassed me. Thank you very much. Sorry. No, it's okay. No, it was great. Tyler gave me a whole tour of White Hill since I hadn't really ever been on campus except to the sports fields. So that was cool. I'm excited for my kids to go there. I mean, it was some of the classes, the design lab. I mean, that is cool. They used all of the, Lisa Skinner, we gave all of the Measure E signs to her. And we collected and gave them to her, and she reused them, which was super cool for these solar powered little miniature go-kart things. So that was kind of cool to see. Little sad, but very cool. What else? The parcel tax town hall, went to that. You had scared me a little bit, Tyler, when you said 8 people had RSVP'd. There was many more than that, so that was great.
It's 40, right? I mean, it was a full.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I thought it was really productive. A lot after talking to a lot of people after, I think this seems like the next one will be even better attended. People have things they want to say, and I keep saying, cool, don't tell me. I mean, do tell me, but also go to the town hall. So hopefully that next one will be even more people. And there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, circling back to a couple of meetings ago, because I did not bring it up last time because I missed my opportunity. I connected with Marin Water, whether we thought maybe there was a program where they would donate water fountains. They do not do that. I think once upon a time, a decade ago, they did, and it is no longer a thing they do. So we cannot count on them to install water fountains for us. But I tried. I think that's it for me.
I went to the JLAC meeting, the Joint Legislative Action Committee, I think. Again, we've got a great countywide joint legislative with consultants that track all of the bills, which is kind of needed because there are a lot of them. And the meeting highlighted how much activity happens in a day at certain budgeting times. There was a whole bunch of trailer bills that were coming out. So they here's the best of our knowledge, and they give us all the information. They said, but they're going to be, 30 more came in yesterday or something like that. So there was a lot of budget conversation. They talked a little bit about how the federal funding issue, which really affects a lot more districts than ours. A lot of the larger districts who have a lot of student populations that rely on the federal funding way more than we do. So we're talking about that. I don't know, Tyler, if I'm forgetting, you were at that meeting as well. So there's that one. I snuck in at the very end of the White Hill. Been there two kids going through it. I've been there a number of times, but it's always good to see that campus bustling with all of the people into the evening and everything that's going on there. So those are the two things. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think we talked about the back to school night.
Did you get your picture taken?
I didn't get my picture taken, but I have a fairly new picture, so we're all getting our pictures to update, but it looks the same because I got my hair cut to match my old picture. So.
All right. Anne and I actually both went to the Brookside and the Manor back to school nights together. So we did that back to back, was the same evening. So we did half of one at one school and then went to the other half to visit the other school, which was really fun to see like all the different schools. And they do such a unique back to school night for everyone, but they're all like great. And then I didn't go to all of the White Hill back to school night because that was my birthday. So I kind of like popped in halfway through and like hit all the classrooms and then bailed. So I didn't get embarrassed by Chris because I wasn't that part.
You're called out as a trustee. All the trustees have to be called out.
Unless you're not there. So I went to that, which is really wonderful because my kids actually, because we'd been out to dinner, they actually wanted to come with me. So they got to see all their old teachers and a lot of hugs. It was nice. And then I did get my picture taken at Brookside. I got glared at by a second grader who's like, I don't recognize you as an adult on this campus. What are you doing here? I was like, I know I don't have a name tag. That's why I'm getting my picture taken. But I was kind of like, I was kind of proud of her awareness of like, this is not a teacher.
Absolutely.
What are you doing here? Then she smiled really big for the camera. Like the photographer guy was like, so smile. And all of a sudden she went from glaring at me to like a big smile. So but kudos to her. So yeah, that was everything that I've attended so far. And with that, we'll move on to superintendent and cabinet report.
Okay, I will go pretty quick. Parcel tax town hall last week went well. I think I had 40-ish people signed up, and I'm hoping that next Thursday on the 25th that we have even more folks there. Had some good feedback and folks from all sides of the spectrum there sharing their thoughts. So encouraged about that and hopeful for next Thursday. Did some classroom visits at Hidden Valley and Manor, which was really nice just to get in the classrooms and see, in particular, our EL education, our new language arts program in action, which was great. I just finished up our 2025-26 budget video, so similar to the video that I did last year. That should be coming out either tomorrow or Friday. I have a parent square kind of teed up for a budget update to the community, and I'll do an Instagram post for that as well. I got to serve lunch at Manor today, which was really nice. On the plus side, we're serving way more lunches. I got to actually eat the beef bowl today, which was nice. I'm definitely seasoned for a second grader, but the kids are really liking it. And because we're serving more lunches on the Delta side, it's much harder on staff, and we don't have many. It's like our principal. We actually had it was the superintendent, the HR coordinator, and the principal serving lunch. So like the most expensive possible lunch service you could imagine.
It's like a Michelin star rated.
But Sean Maher and the IT department put together a really great solution to have a touch screen, which is really helpful because it used to be just a paper thing that people were like flipping back and forth on to find a student's name and what lunch they ordered. So it was helpful to see that in action. I'm going to do the same thing at White Hill tomorrow. Then I've also had ice cream with the Wade Thomas, Hidden Valley, and Brookside. I've gone to all 5 schools, but those 3 recently. As is tradition, I take ice cream to the staff at the beginning of the year and just sit and listen to them if they have feedback or questions. They've had a lot of feedback around the EL implementation of our new language arts program, and most of it's been very positive, along with some support that Julia will be giving them here throughout the year, and then lots of questions around the parcel tax have been kind of the themes of my visits with them. So that's what I've been up to lately.
Awesome. We've just about completed both our reading difficulty screener and our iReady assessments, and probably by the end of next week, parents will receive a parent square communication with those reports attached to that communication. So that's kind of exciting. We have an iReady training for teachers on October 9th. There's going to be a trainer at every site for a half a day that's going to meet with grade levels and really dig into data with those teachers to just kind of take things to the next level. I met with the science department today, and they have definitely landed on piloting Open SciEd, which is a fantastic science program. I'm really excited about this. Actually, Archie has, or maybe the whole Tim district, I'm not sure, adopted it for chemistry, and they're looking at it for the other sciences there too. It's an open source program, and what I really like about it is it's very kind of investigation, experimentation forward, which some of the other NGSS aligned programs have been a little bit weak in. They're very, kids will say, all you're doing is asking me to write in science, when really what kids want to do in science is the doing, right? So excited about that. We had our teacher leadership meeting, Delight, and they gave really good feedback, particularly on ELED. And I think the general sense is it's big, it's a really heavy lift, and they're tired, and they're having to look at these big lessons. Sometimes there's like 20, 30 pages to explain what the lesson is, and kind of get the gist of that and figure out what parts they need to do, what parts maybe they can let go. It's a big task. It's a really big task. And they love the books, and they're finding a lot of things about it successful. It's a really rigorous program, which I'm excited about how high the bar is with this program. And it is also a program that provides differentiation for kids who are needing a little bit more scaffolding. Next week, we have our first district grade level team meeting of the year. That will be at Hidden Valley. And grade levels are going to talk about our new report cards. So elementary, newsflash. We had a committee that worked over the summer, and they went through our math standards and looked at all that good hard work that we did last year on prioritization of standards, and kind of went through and said, do we have the right standards on the report card? And do we need this many? So there are, I'd say on average per grade level, 25% fewer standards on there. They're very clear. They're all what we call our boulders, like every kid needs to know these things. And then on the flip side of the report card, where we have our characteristics of a successful learner, those have been completely redone. There are not as many. I would say they've been modernized. Like, they feel right to me. They're more SEL forward, and just really talk about what it means to be a student in the classroom and the kind of language that our principals and our teachers are using with students on a daily basis. So I'm really excited about that.
Fewer ends.
Oh, and they changed. This was really brilliant. I don't know if you remember, but we had the marks for, academic standards and the marks for characteristics of a learner were completely different letters, which was really confusing. And so now it's like meeting expectations for standards and meeting expectations for characteristics. So the language is more in alignment. Good move. We have EL Ed coaching dates coming up. We just booked our first round of dates. So in October, each site will have a full day of training on their site. And then just in the HR department, I just wanted to say, feeling really good about the solution we came up with for Spanish. We have a teacher on leave, and there's a really great substitute in there right there now. And we found this program, a virtual program, that is a lot more exciting than most asynchronous kind of programs that you would find. It has the kids talking to each other, up and out of their seats, watching videos, reading stories, and I think it's going probably better than one might expect. So good solution there. And we filled our open 6th grade resource specialist position, which is really good news. So lots going on.
Quick question, you had said that the parents got a Parent Square email with the formative results of the formative assessments.
They will.
And are those individual to their student or just overall for the
Oh,
school?
sorry. Yes, individual. So they have a student report. So our families with 1st and 2nd graders will get the reading difficulty screener report. Kindergarten won't take that assessment until a little bit later in the year because it's developmentally appropriate. And then 1st grade through 8th grade will receive their own student report for iReady.
That's great. So so parents are getting formative and summative.
That's right.
Yeah. Are those automatically attached, or do teachers have to attach every single one for every single student?
No, Sean has figured it out. Sean and Paula have
That
a way that it's
database.
being sent like cryptically so that it can't be whatever. And actually we're gonna be doing the same thing with report cards. And so that's been a huge task for teachers, having to attach each report card to an email. So starting this year, teachers will not be sending report cards to the district office.
Thank you.
All right, I've been out at sites a lot, meeting with principals, meeting with our special education teachers, seeing some of our, what's going on in some of our programs, and I'm super impressed with all of the support that the teachers and principals do to go above and beyond to make sure our kids have what they need. And it's been fun to be a part of that and do some problem solving around some of the challenges that we've been experiencing. We have an October 3rd professional development day coming up, so when you plan for a special education day, you're planning for OTs, speech language pathologists, school psychologists. So what does everybody need? And so I'm coordinating that right now, and really based upon what the team feels like they need, and then a big project that we're going to be working on collaboratively throughout the year. We do have wellness committee dates. Who's our wellness committee? Okay, yay. We do have dates on the calendar now, and I'll be sending a flyer out to all of our team, and then also to recruit a few more people from the people we've lost. We also have our special education advisory committee meeting coming up on Tuesday night. I'll be sending an agenda out on Friday ahead of time so you can all take a look. And we're really going to be looking at defining creating sort of an operational definition of inclusion and what that looks like in a special education program. So that'll be our goal for the year, and I'm really excited about that. I've also started my work with Holly Wade on behalf of the district to put together plans and have her do that review. We've developed a scope and sequence to what we're going to be doing, and then also she'll be out in October, the 20th and 21st, to be talking to people, doing some tours of classrooms and things like that. So that's great. We have we're going to have principals be looking at a grade level retention policy that we're gonna have them look at that on Monday around a timeline and what that looks like, and so making some changes there. We also have Julie Harris, principal at Wade Thomas, and I are talking about developing a social emotional learning curriculum committee as we need to figure out some strategies and some research-based and evidence-based curriculum and that kind of thing. So we're going to be co-chairing that committee and bringing some members on board there. We have a couple of counselors who are really interested, so that'll be great. And yeah.
That's it.
That's all.
That's all, Lori? Wow, you're getting busy.
I have nothing this evening. I talked enough.
You had the 2 presentations earlier. I just want to put a pin in this. The work that the cabinet team, our administrators, our teachers, our classified folks are doing right now is monumental. The amount of work that we're doing is something to be proud and slightly scared of, because everyone's really burning the candle at both ends. And I think when we're out at sites, we see it from time to time, where this time of year is really busy, and it's tiring for teachers and admin and classified folks like. So just a reminder that sharing gratitude for the folks you see on campus is really critical because they're all working super hard.
And with that, I will move on to meeting review. We have future board topics and board direction. Do we have any? We already got campus tours added to that list for this for the trustees to join.
Sorry.
When is the Yes Fest?
October 10th.
Okay.
The only feedback I have is that Teresa Machado needs to be doing the agendas and not me. She does a much better job than I do.
A cappuccino!
I was gonna ask if we could maybe find out from Sean if we can get the safe routes to school thing that Chris was telling us about, like their safest route to get to school. If we could get something like a link to that added to our website. So it's like, hey, find the safest route for your kid, because they may not go to the safe routes at school, but they might be on our site.
Yeah.
Or might think to ours.
I brought that up at the meeting. I said, I said, is there a way to like navigate? And they're like, oh yeah. They're like, it's on our website.
We're like, nobody knows about it. So
I didn't know.
that? Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a
Maybe
good
we
thing.
can get it on our website or something.
We're in the process of redoing the website anyway, so
There you go.
Oh,
That was
that's great news.
That was a topic that I was wondering, as you mentioned a couple times, so maybe on a future, I don't know, whether you want to even
Or
open that can
even
of
the school newsletters too should have that link
Yes.
when they start.
QR code, something.
Yeah.
And then I kind of would be interested in looking our bid process. Like if we're getting bids and things are not being done to like satisfaction, or maybe there are issues that come up, then maybe we can look at how we're doing that and like maybe not accept a bid from somebody who, like, is it a responsible bid if we know that you've in the past given us a bid that we didn't find to be acceptably fulfilled?
Right.
I would be interested in looking into like maybe holding off on payment until we talk about that with that contractor, because I am a little dismayed how that turned out. Not to blame you or anything. I understand that we needed to have something done in those schools, so I understand that, but also that's what a bid process is for. We do bids all the time for audits where I work.
Right.
It's like, if we overrun it, we end up eating that cost. So I don't know how different it is in construction, but it's something I would like us to at least take a look at as operations and systems and process. So that's.
And I would add to that, because I think it'd be helpful, just like we've done with some of our other kind of informative, just also what are the processes, what are the regulations that we're under, here's a day in the life of a bid process. Here's what can happen. Here's what we can do about it. Here's what we can't do about it. Here's comparatives or something like that. Just because I think our regulatory environment is different from other environments, and so I think it's also just helpful to understand what bids look like and how they're the same or different from what bids other people might experience.
Yeah.
I don't even know all of them. There's facilities wise, and then there's also just public entity.
You have any other future topics or direction? All right. So with that, I'll move to meeting debrief. Any comments on tonight's meeting?
Exceptional.
It's cold over here.
It's like either freezing or I'm hot.
I know. And speaking of facilities, it's the one thing we can talk about going to Mars, but we can't deal with an HVAC situation anywhere in facilities. But I don't know if there's usually it's a physically like move our table back a foot or something like that, but just a thought.
Is it warmer back there?
Yeah, that's why I scooted back, because it's that one over there.
Oh yeah,
that blows right this way. So
tonight it came on just when my hot flashes were hitting.
So you were loving it. That's funny. I'll put my thinking.
And
okay, with that, any things, I will
jump the shark.
We're not going to continue past 10:30, and I will adjourn us at 9:13. All right.
Jump the shark.